Welcome to the Mostly Pod Out at Night. Mostly, I am Graveyard, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is episode 26 of our weekly All Things Horde podcast. Tonight, we'll be discussing killer machines. So we'll be going over movies that have killer machines and just that aren't part of a bigger franchise that we can discuss later on. So this will include the 80s classic Chopping Mall, the very 90s Death Machine, Screamers, and the newest entry into this genre, Megan, or Menthrigan, as we want to call it. So spoilers ahead for these movies, especially Megan. So top of the list, we are going to go into what we normally do. We'll have a new category called AI Win or AI Failed, determining and discussing if we think this AI was the end-all be-all Terminator point salvation, right, where AI is too dangerous that we're worried about this AI in this movie to take over humanity. So we're going chronologically order, as always. So we'll begin with Chopping Mall, which came out in 1986.
And it really feels like it's older than that. Like you look at it and everybody looks like they're at least 1984.
Right. Yes, I definitely agree. And I have a hard time pending how old these characters are supposed to be.
I mean, it's the 80s, man. Teens were like in the 30s.
Right. And funny enough, and we'll discuss it too, but the original title was called, what was it? Killbots, which is definitely a more apt title. But first, let's get into the recap. So essentially, we start off with a guy who's somehow inside the mall and just breaking into all the stores after it's closed, and we see these protector robots going after him, chasing him, and essentially, they stun him with
tase him.
They tase him to knock him out, and you find out that it's all just a presentation to a group of, I don't know, the mall owners or the store owners within the mall.
They never really describe it, but let's just describe them as annoying.
Yes, and we do see the married couple that actually do make quite a number of appearances as the same couple in 80s movies. I don't remember their names, but there's this whole thing around them.
Mr. and Mrs. Bland.
Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Bland. They're just rolling their eyes at each other, just making fun of these presentations. And, it's a high-tech robot company presenting and say, hey, never worry about people breaking into your mall after hours and stealing and breaking into all the stores. We have 3 protectors that are all controlled by a central computer station. We have someone monitoring them at all time. And, someone asks a very important question. What if we're working late? Valid question, right? Anywhere you work, what happens if I'm working after they lock up? What do I do? And they have a security system. They go, okay, well, you have this badge, and the presenter just essentially just shoves it right in the protector's face. And it would say, okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
Well, yeah, I mean, but this is also 1986. The scanning technology is not very good.
Right, but we also had Jeff Goldblum's The Fly with his great computer, so a little uneven in the 80s.
Well, again, that's whenever they needed a computer to do something, but they didn't know how to get it to do that, they would just ask it a question and it would answer.
Yes. And they also say that it also implemented unmovable shutters on every exit from midnight to 6 a.m., which is not a lot of time that the mall's closed. But,
the other thing that I thought was funny is that if you're inside the mall when those doors close, you just have to wait till it opens.
Right.
There's no way to open the door. You'd think okay, well, you have scannable badges. Why can't you just use the badge to get out?
Right. I mean, obviously, we work with that technology now that you're able to do that.
I'm just saying, even in the 80s, they had cards. I mean, because I know for a fact they did.
Yeah.
Because I think I shared my AT&T, roller skating phone story. That's how he got into the building. Was he had a card that he'd put up to a reader that would open the door.
Yes.
And that was in 1985. So I know they had the technology.
Right. And if they have these protector technology, they should have that technology
Correct.
to let you out, like a service entrance or exit with only the badge allowing to be done.
Right. I mean, obviously, this is just for purposes of the movie, but
yeah,
I'm just saying it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that you would not have a built-in backdoor.
Correct. Yeah. So essentially, the robots are there to stop any intruders using tasers, tranquilizer guns. And they each have a floor they patrol of this, 3-story mall. So then we get a very, very 80s mall montage, I'd call it, nonetheless, right? Just all this stuff. The pizza place where the guy seems to take his food very seriously for a food court restaurant. And then they make fun of the guy who's just ordering, that just goes and eats and gorges himself every night when he gets done. Probably with work, or he's just at the mall every day. I don't know.
Excuse me, miss. I need more butter.
Yeah. Like I said, very 80s. Then we get introduced to our cast of couples. They're planning on having this essentially party in the furniture store after hours. They're inviting their friends.
The correct term would be Roman orgy.
Well, yeah, that's yes. And then they have this new friend that doesn't have a boyfriend, and you can tell this, and their nerdy friend who works there, whose uncle owns like the furniture store. But you can tell he's nerdy because he wears glasses. Right?
Yes. This is the 80s, so yes, if you wear glasses, you are a nerdy character, period.
Right. And then we were also introduced to a couple who just got married and have their own tow truck, and that's how they make all their money. They spent so much money on the tow truck, and they realize how many repairs they have to do, and they have this weird math in their head how much it takes to repair it. But essentially, they didn't do a honeymoon. They bought this truck, and now they're going with these, quote, I don't know, teenagers, 20s, 30s age people. I have no idea. It's the 80s. They're very,
mature. Mature.
I would imagine that you weren't allowed to work past a certain time in the 80s as well as a teenager, like you couldn't when I was a teenager.
I highly doubt that. The 80s was not one for restrictions.
Yeah, so they just know that, hey, we have this badge, we're going to stay here and just have a wild party in the mall with a lot of the stores still seemingly open. I think it's just all the stores that they happen to work in, because they all work in different spots. And then they proceed to have their Roman orgy where everyone's within 5 feet of each other having sex. Except the dirty guy and this girl that he likes, they're watching. Couldn't pick out the movie of what it was. Public domain movie, looked like probably a Roger Corman movie.
It had giant ants.
Right. Anything with giant ants. I also say that because the producer of this was Julie Gorman, Roger Corman's wife. So that's why I'm saying it's a Roger Corman movie. So anyway, then, they're doing this stuff. We meet like the guy at the board, essentially watching and maintaining the protectors, and lightning storm happens and hits, the protectors 1 through 3. And I don't think the guy had any lines other than, oh yeah, as he's looking at his dirty magazine he hid within his own book when he's the only one there. And the protectors, essentially programming gets rewritten. He gets killed. Then the next guy comes in like, oh, he's not here. We don't see the guy's body ever again. We don't know where the body went. And then he goes like, ooh, let me finish this fully eaten donut. Which is weird.
Just didn't want to be wasteful. That's all.
Sure. And then he gets killed as well. And then, as the Roman orgy is going on, one guy, Mike, his girlfriend, she goes, I need cigarettes. It's like, I got a pack here. Well, I only smoke. I don't remember what she said she smoked.
Virgin Lights,
yes. So he had to go to now stuff you don't see anymore, the cigarette vending machine, What she says, what $1.25 for a pack of cigarettes in 1986.
You're not going in divey enough bars, man. They still got them.
Oh, that's fair. I'm probably not. And let's just say his personality is he chews gum.
Very annoyingly. And
very
like
loudly.
nonstop.
Yes, that's his character trait. Is he's got the square jaw and he chews gum. And that's fair because that's what happens essentially, right? They go after him. You see, he's like, "Oh, here's my badge," and like, ignore him and like try to. He tries to escape on the world's flimsiest bar. Like it looked like it was made out of rubber almost when he's trying to get out those doors. That bar is just so flimsy. But we see an arm come out, and that's pretty much it. Oh, also I forgot to mention
he shoots him with a sleep dart.
Yeah.
And he goes to sleep, and then that's when he grabs his neck and kills him. But the funny part is they specifically made a big thing about them having these sleep darts, and this is the only time in the movie the sleep darts are ever used.
Correct. We also see the janitor who plays the curmudgeonly neighbor in Gremlins, big 80s guy, also in, everything Joe Dante makes in the 80s. He's killed because one of the protectors knocks over his water bucket, slop bucket, and then shoot the taser into him, electrocuting him. There's a neat little cameo by them, and then Mike's girlfriend goes to try to find him, like, oh, it's taking him forever. I need my Virgin Slims. Right?
Yeah, so with no pants on. I mean, in the mall, the mall isn't even totally closed yet. She's walking around with no pants on in the mall.
Right, so we follow her ass essentially to the cigarette machine.
Yeah, that's a long ass shot.
Yeah. And she goes, I don't see him. Like, yeah, the lights are off. We can clearly see him, but she stumbles onto him. Then, like, she looks at him and like his throat is slit open, and that's when blood comes out.
Oh, yeah. And
then the protector seems to have gotten through the other side of the doors for a nice surprise and jump scare for her. That was very thoughtful of it. The doors that were clearly locked. And then somehow opens them towards itself.
I mean, to be fair, it has lasers. It could have through the locks.
Yes. So it starts chasing her and shoots lasers at her a little bit. And they're almost like blasters from Star Wars, I would say. Like, not a lot of damage.
Yeah, but they also sound like the lasers from War of the Worlds.
Yeah, that's fair. She's trying to get in places that she goes to where the furniture store is, and then her head just explodes from the laser. And then the
everybody in the party goes to the window to watch her head explode. So now everyone is aware that the robots are killing everyone.
Yes, I mean the Roman orgy had to come to a stop for that.
I'm pretty sure everybody was done at that point. So yeah. At least they succeeded.
Yep. After they see that, they try to go into the stock room there and realize, oh, they're not going to let us out, and they're like, oh, we have to get out before the shutters close because it's still not even midnight at this point in time. So they're like, oh, look, here's a vent. And they start crawling through it. Oh no, the ladies start going through the vent, and they're trying to find all the stuff out. And then, they realize that there is, like, the heat is turned on. Like, it's summer, so the vent's starting to get hot, really, really hot. I don't know how accurate these vents that people can fit in, let alone 2 or 3 people side by side.
Well, who knows? I mean, malls are large. They probably have huge HVAC systems. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, they do have big vents sometimes. I've seen them in buildings, but I don't know.
Right. While that is going on, the men go to, hey, we need to protect ourselves. So they're like, all right, we're going to go where all the assault rifles are, apparently.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is an American mall.
Right. Shells and assault rifles, shotguns, they just kind of Rambo themselves up. And the world's lightest propane tanks I've ever seen.
Well, they're also like smaller than the ones I've ever seen.
You're right. Yeah, they're quite small. So they're like a miniature tabletop grill.
Yeah. They were like half size. They were like half hands.
Yeah. So, they're like, hey, how do we get this, the robots thing? And the guy shoots, the tow truck driver shoots the gun there, and one's just like right there. Well, that was fast.
Well, I mean, okay, the malls aren't that big to where if you fire a gun in the air, everyone's immediately going to know where you are.
Yeah. So they start shooting at it while it's shooting lasers unsuccessfully at them. It apparently went to the Stormtrooper School of Shooting after that point in time. They gingerly roll the tank to it, and then they shoot it, and it blows up. What's that? It's robot blood.
Yeah, this is an aside here. I mean, the sound that these robots make when they're driving around.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like it's like a hot rod. I mean, it is very loud, and it is very again, it sounds like an engine running.
Oh, absolutely. As opposed to like a RV car.
Right. And every tiny movement is coupled with that.
Yep.
Every single movement.
Yeah. So they're doing that, and they realize, hey, we're going to set up this booby trap on the elevator, which they know how to open the elevator. It doesn't work. Then they know how to rig the elevator because they have the nerds. They start hooking up hoses, which I don't know where they got hoses from, to the elevator. While that's happening, the women in the vent okay, I'm panicking. I can't do this. They exit the vent system and happen to just go into an automotive shop, which, plot convenience right there. And they start arming themselves, and they're like, all right, here's all these full containers of gasoline that are there. I don't know if I've ever seen a gasoline container full inside a store.
Have you ever been inside an automotive store in 1986?
I mean, I might have. I don't remember.
No, I don't know. I don't think I ever carried full gas cans, but I mean, yeah, for the purpose of but again, the purpose of it is okay, it's a robot.
Yeah. It's
made of metal. What do you think fire is going to do to it?
Fire burns and purifies.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you were thinking. I mean, the one lady was a mechanic, right?
Right.
She should know. Yeah, you should know that throwing a Molotov at a car is not going to stop the car. You might burn the interior, but that's about it.
Right. And they're like, okay, let's just make all these Molotovs. And first off, those are probably what? Gallon and a half gas cans. Those aren't light either.
No.
And they're each carrying multiples of them.
Yeah, they have. I think they have at least one in each hand.
Yeah. And then, they see a road flare and they're like, okay, cool. And I don't have a pocket, so I'm just shove this in my bra.
She clearly had pockets.
I know. But she acted like she didn't know what pockets were.
Yes, that's true. I mean, to be fair, a lot of women's clothing does not have pockets.
Right.
But I know that her clothes did.
Yeah. So then, let's see here. They realize, hey, let's meet up the guys. So they're going to set up the trap. They lure one of the protectors, I think it's Protector 2, into the elevator while on the top floor, and they jump off. I think as Ricky does this huge leap that would clearly break both his legs from the top of the elevator. And none of them are able to shoot the propane tanks around the elevator until was it Allison?
Yeah, I think her name was Allison.
All of a sudden, she's like, give me the gun. She shoots it perfectly. My dad's a Marine. That doesn't mean you know how to shoot.
Also, I'll say, okay, there was 3 guns available, right?
Yes.
You have 1 assault rifle, 2 shotgun, 3 handgun.
Yes.
And she takes the handgun and hits it the first shot.
Yes. And tanks were clearly made flimsier in the 80s because it works with 1 shot. And they then blow up Protector 2. What we didn't realize, they didn't realize, is they just saw robot blood and Protector 1's still alive.
Right.
So then they go hide in the restaurant.
Well, yeah, 1 girl died.
Oh, yeah, because it started running over her, but then it ignited the gasoline, so she was like crawling while being burnt alive.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they tried their Molotovs on it, and of course it did absolutely nothing, and it just drove through the fire because it's just fire.
Correct.
And then the one girl got set on fire.
Yeah,
and she died a slow, agonizing death while everybody watched her scream and writhe around on the ground.
yes,
And they did no one did anything. I mean, I don't know what they could have done, but no one did anything at all.
right. And her boyfriend tries shooting at them, which the bullets do nothing to metal robots. Surprise, surprise.
I mean, if you hit them in the right spot, I'm sure they would, but they weren't even trying.
Right. So then they go hide in the restaurant, the pizza place, essentially, right, or Italian place, I'd say. Talking about, like, how could you shouldn't have left the ducks? She's dead because of you guys, and gets really, really angry. And then he threatens essentially all of them, saying, because he's very distraught that his girlfriend died, right? I'd say rightfully so. And threatens the nerd. And then that's when they realize, hey, there's got to be a central computer somewhere, right? So let's go ahead, and if we should be able to shut them down from there. So they're like, okay, cool, we're gonna go do that, and it's like it's on the third floor of the mall. Because usually malls don't have a floor on top of the top floor of the mall. So they agreed to go do that. All of a sudden, another projector shows up and throws, what's his name, Greg, over the side of the railing, and he dies from massive head trauma.
The assault rifle guy?
Yeah. No, the one with the shotgun, not the mechanic.
Right.
The one that his girlfriend was set on fire.
They have to kill them in couples.
Correct.
Yeah, there can't be two mismatched couples. There has to be, one couple at a time. So it's one member of the couple, then the second member. It follows that pattern throughout the movie.
Right. And then, they're like, okay, well, so it's the mechanic couple and the nerdy couple left, and they go to a department store, I'd say. They want something to shoot at. We'll give them something to shoot at. So they line up a whole bunch of mannequins with them in there as well, which is a weird tactic. You'd think you would like hide and have them go towards the mannequins and then start shooting. Right. And then I'm trying, they set up mannequins, confuse it.
And then essentially in this battle, if you will, the mechanic couple both get killed.
Yes.
So then it's just the nerdy couple. Because they have managed to take out one of them, so there's only one left at this point.
Right, because the one that's left is because they blind it somehow, right?
Not yet. That's the part we get to.
Okay.
Is that they split up but the nerdy couple, Allison, I think his name is Marty, something like that, or Birdie, something like that.
Ferdy.
So they split up trying to find this computer thing. They both go into like separate storage rooms.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know why you're going to think you're going to find a computer in a storage room, but whatever. That's what they do. So the robot finds, the girl finds Allison. She starts screaming. The robot waits patiently for Birdie to come all the way from the other side of the mall to them.
Yes.
And then turns, and then he shoots it point blank range in the laser window.
And essentially, so it can't have lasers. And
right. So then it can't shoot lasers anymore.
But it tosses a canister at him, which he then falls and hits his head and is bleeding.
Right. Yeah.
Presumed dead.
Correct.
So then we get Allison with her final thing where she just the worst paint can lids in the history of the world that she just barely touches and they come right off.
Yeah, but not only that, but like paint is not that flammable.
Also not that color sitting on the shelf.
Well, you know what I'm saying?
It's
though, but
just
like
white.
Yeah, she was like throwing all this paint all over the ground and then like mixing it with like paint thinner.
Right.
I'm like, okay, like if you're trying to set a fire, just use the paint thinner. Like the paint is not going to do anything. I mean, I guess she was doing like she was trying to make it slippery because like its tank treads were going, but I mean that's kind of like the point of tank treads is they don't get slippery.
Yeah.
Whatever. But so it was like slipping on the paint, and then she like of course uses her road flare that was in her bra wallet.
Yep.
And then throws it, and then all the paint explodes. Which again, paint is not all that flammable. I don't know how it would explode, but even though it survived the fire before, it does not survive this fire.
Correct. That fire was more hot,
right?
Because of the chemicals.
Well, it knocked its head off. You can see its head flop off to the side. The rest of the robot was totally intact, but the head flops off to the side, which means
And then as she's limping towards the exit, then we see that Ferdy is also alive, and they walk out. Now, one thing I do have to point out as well, I forgot to mention it, is when they're in the restaurant, they realize all the damage we've done to the mall. That's going to take like 1 million repair jobs to fix. Well, maybe we'll up our rates. Like if you're in the mall, you could just say you weren't having the Roman orgy, but this went awry. I don't think you'd be held liable for the damages done.
I mean, regardless, they could have said they were in there having a party. That's not a death sentence.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, these things are malfunctioning. Obviously, this is going to be a huge lawsuit against them. In no way would they ever press charges against these people.
Right.
That's I didn't understand that part either. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you concerned about damages? Like, they're ever going to charge you for this?
Right. Yeah. These things meant to protect them all. The first night, run amok and kill.
Right.
What?
So
8 people?
Right. So it's like, okay, like on what planet is is the legal system going to side with the robots? It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And then a little post-credit scene is, there's a fourth unknown protector, and he says, "Have a nice day."
Well, no, I think it's just one of the other ones survived.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the one survived a tank blast, so I mean, who knows? The other ones could have survived. Could have been the paint one. Could have put his head back on. I don't know.
So end of movie. I think we've discussed this even on here briefly, but this was definitely not a first watch through for me, not a second watch through. But you've seen this a number of times, and how misleading is the poster and the name of this movie? Because the poster is essentially like a severed hand holding a shopping bag. And
it's a robot hand.
It's a robot hand.
Well, yeah, but it's a humanoid robot hand. Like it has 5 fingers.
Yeah. And no one gets chopped in this chopping mall. I understand it is a play of words. And I think the original title, Killbots, would have been better.
Well, I mean, this is the 80s, man. Malls are huge.
That's fair.
This is the era of Tiffany and the mall crowd. I mean, it's people want to, people want, if they can have mall in the title, they're going to take it.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's a play on shopping mall, but it's shopping mall. But the first thoughts when I first saw this, that I think I watched it within the past year, for the first time in a very long time. You look back and okay, that's pretty cheesy, but it is an era of the 80s because shopping malls were huge. So it really tied into that era, I think, perfectly. I mean, is it goofy? Yeah, it is. It's goofy, but it's still a good, fun movie to watch. I think. I think it's one of those things you can just kind of turn on and turn off your brain. What do you think?
Yeah. It's just a dumb, fun movie. I mean, I've seen this movie a lot of times. I mean, the first time I saw it was probably in 1986 or 1987, like right after it came out, because it was. I don't know if it was actually big or not, but I remember it was in the video store, and of course,
the cover art.
Yeah, it looked. Yeah, that was definitely the cover art that sold me on it, and I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then it was like robots, I was like, that's awesome.
Well, I know, especially for you in the 80s. Yes,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah, because I love the Terminator. Obviously, this was not as good as the Terminator, but it was a bonus for me when I watched it. And again, it's not a great movie. I mean, it's not going to win any awards or anything, but it's just a good, dumb, fun movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Highlights for me in this movie, realistically, is the idea of the AI gone awry. There's always that thing. There's been that thing since robots have essentially been in sci-fi movies or horror movies. It's like I said, it's good fun. I think it captured the mall perfectly. And I never worked at a mall. I know people that did. But yeah, I think it captured what the mall experience is and would, help. Was a good tie into the mall experience. It's nostalgia at this point in time because most malls are dead or dying.
Yeah. And the ones that aren't are dangerous. Essentially. Right. I mean, I spent some time in malls in the 80s. I would say my heavy mall times were in the early 90s. Because I lived within walking distance of a mall, so I was there all the time. But when I was younger, I was in the mall all the time, and it looked like every other mall looked like at that time. An unnecessary number of shoe stores for some reason. I mean, if you look in the show, I don't even know how many shoe stores were in that.
Oh, it was 5.
I mean, it was like everywhere. Every time they're in a scene in the regular mall, there's a shoe store behind them. There's an unnecessary number of shoe stores, and that's true. There really is that many shoe stores. But yeah, no, it was it's a stupid fun movie, and again, I've seen it a bunch of times, and I've rewatched it again. I watched it maybe a couple years back, because I think in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you've ever seen that show, they mention it in one of the episodes. And I was like, oh yeah, I should rewatch that. And I did.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was, some of the stuff was shot at a mall. Obviously not interior. They didn't destroy all that stuff. But exterior was, I'm just looking up right now. But essentially it took place at Sherman Oaks Galleria, where Fast Time at Ridgemont High and Commando were shot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you usually recognize them all from Commando.
Well, it's the same elevator in Commando.
Yeah.
Because the elevator is prominent in both of the movies.
Right. Yeah, I just find it weird there's no arcades. They showed 0 arcades, and usually when you have mall shootings, that you have at least one arcade scene, right? There was an arcade scene, wasn't there? Where the guy pushed the kid out of the way.
Yeah, I mean that was just part of the montage in the beginning. But yeah, my guess is they probably didn't want explosions and shit happening in front of the arcade. It's probably what happened.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if we discussed it on here, but I know we've discussed before. I didn't know arcades existed in the malls because my parents never took me to those areas of the mall. They never wanted me to know where they were.
The mall that I hung out with, or the mall that I hung out at, both when I was a kid and later in the 90s, both had arcades.
Yeah.
The one in it's funny because it's a dead mall now. It's gone. It's not there anymore. There was a mall that had an arcade. I remember if you went there early on a Saturday, because they didn't technically open until noon, but if you went there at 10 o'clock on Saturday, they would open the doors for 5 minutes and everybody would get in. And then you'd pay a flat fee of I think it was $5.
Oh, wow.
And he put free play on all the machines. So
that's
from
cool.
from 10 to 12 for $5, you had free play. You could play any arcade machine in the whole thing. And there was only a few people there. Huh. I mean, I was never there alone, but there was only a few people there. It was great. But yeah, you all get in there, you pay your $5, he locks the door behind you, and then you just play all you want.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome for me, and the late 80s was fantastic.
Yeah. Low points though for this, the guy just chomping at his gum nonstop. It was
that's why he died first.
I know. It's just that, and like I said, the Roman orgy. Even as a teenager, I don't think I've ever done something like that. It's just weird. I feel.
I mean, these were obviously not teenagers, but like real teenagers, yeah, they do that stuff. I mean, if you have a party and you have a very limited space to have that party in, yeah, it'll end up that way.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can say when I was a kid, I was, hanging out in rooms where people were in the corner, obviously getting it on, while the rest of the people in the room were just trying to ignore them and concentrate on whatever else they were doing. Because, sometimes you only have a room, as, when, you're like young teenagers, having a party or whatever.
Yeah.
It happens.
But then it'd be the people watching the movie. That'd be uncomfortable, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, that's basically what you did. You just pretended like it wasn't happening, and you just watch TV or do whatever else you were doing.
I'm gonna guess at one of your low points, and I'm sure you have more. I'm gonna go with one of your low points is where they knock down the spiders and the snakes in the pet stores when she's hiding, and they start crawling her.
Yeah. Okay. One, when that snake was wiggling around, it was smacking those spiders, and those are real spiders.
Yeah.
I was like, why? That's dangerous, man. I mean, the spiders are going to like kill the snake or something bad. Something bad's going to happen. Anyway, when she was underneath like the shelf or whatever, hiding underneath, those were real spiders on her, man.
Yeah.
They were real. They were moving. They were wiggling and stuff. And this is 86. They don't have that kind of technology.
Yeah.
Oh man. I was like, those are real. Like, I mean, obviously when she was getting out, they were fake and they just fell off. Right. But when she was like sitting under there, they were real. They were like just sitting on her arm, and that thing was huge.
Yeah.
It was like the whole size of her bicep. It was giant. Oh my God.
Like I said, I imagine that was a low point for you.
It was terrifying.
Do you have any other low points?
Low point. No, I mean, not really. I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Bland are very, very annoying.
But like I said, they play those characters. There's a whole subset of those characters for them somewhere. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an overall pretty decent movie. Now let's get into just our category for this round, which is the AI win or AI fail. As determined, would you be worried about this AI taking over humanity? What do you think?
I would not. No. I mean, this is like a limited case in the 80s. It's not like they have the internet to really spread around the globe.
Yeah.
This is like one limited case of like a lightning strike somehow gave them sentience in some way or another. I don't know. But yeah, I highly doubt that this would be a massive, issue. I mean, obviously it was bad for these, people that got trapped in the mall because they don't, can't do anything about it. But if you had like, an anti-tank weapon, you could take them out pretty easily. But yeah, it's just the three. I don't think if it did happen with other mall locations, it would be a very limited thing. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously everything's going to get discontinued after this, but yeah, I don't think there's a greater threat to humanity as a whole.
Yeah. Like I said, that's fair. I think, if there was a sequel, I bet you they would have, essentially said that, this was a one-time fluke. They could have been like, all right, let's just open up every mall with these things and had a bigger, more grandiose aspect of it. But yeah, I'm not worried about these. They were taken out pretty decently, easily.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, when they finally got out, there may have been, they may have still been around, but again, once they tell them what's happening, and somebody comes in with any kind of armor-piercing anti-tank thing, they're out, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You don't have that capability in a mall. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for this week, we are doing number of reboots out of 10. 10 being the best, 1 being, or 0, depending on how some of these go, being the worst. Because this is such a fun, campy movie, and it's just easy to watch, and you don't have to think too much about it. I mean, I'm probably going to an 8 on this. Eight reboots out of 10. How about you?
Again, I wouldn't actually say this is a 7, right? Thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I have gone back and rewatched this movie multiple times. So by following my own rewatch law, it has to be a 7 in order for me to rewatch it. And since I have rewatched it, that means it's a 7.
Okay. Fair. It's when, especially when the wife goes, let's put on a dumb, stupid, cheesy horror movie. This is easily a good contender every time.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, all right. So that brings us into the next movie, Death Machine, and you will go ahead and take that on.
Yeah. Death Machine. I had never seen this movie before. I don't think I've ever even heard of this movie before. But yeah, there's some interesting things in it. Before I go into it, yeah, it's like Rachel Weisz is in it for all of like 3 seconds.
Yep.
She does have a speaking role, but it is literally, she just says a line in the beginning of the movie and she never comes back. She's just gone. And it's like a weirdly like a headshot. Like she's not even in the camera with other people. It's just like a weird headshot of her saying something and then people responding and then she's totally gone.
And she has a piercing.
Yeah, she has a nose ring, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. Well, I guess I'll go into the character names when we get to them. As they're introduced, I'll give it because it gives it away too much in the very beginning. Anyway, so we're given a kind of like a little mini intro in that there's like this diner, right? That's like on fire and being destroyed, and there's dead people everywhere, and there's a bunch of people, got holes right in their heads. It looks like somebody like executed them. And there's like this, police and this like response team, and they come in to see all this death and destruction. They go into the bathroom and there's a guy in this weird like suit, I guess you could call it, like kind of like a little mini mech suit, right? Like an exoskeleton suit.
Yeah.
And he's just like punching the wall over and over and over and over again. And they go up to him and they essentially just like turn him off. I mean, he's like he looks human, he was saying things as a human would, but obviously something's wrong with him. And there's a woman there, she's like screaming, and then that's kind of it, where the guys in this like kind of SWAT response team and like their black weird looking armor that came in to retrieve this guy, they apparently have like an agreement with the police. They're like, oh, you never saw this, nothing ever happened. Right. The cops are like, okay, great. So they go back to Chank headquarters.
Yes, I had to read that like twice.
I'm like, what are they saying? What is that word? Yeah, Chank, CHAANK is the name of this company. And this company is like I guess like a military contractor. They're like it's like a weapons company, right?
They essentially make RoboCops,
right? Well, yeah, but the rest of the company is weapons contracting. So essentially there's like a new CEO. This woman comes in as the new CEO. Apparently the old CEO just died recently. She comes in, because all of this, they're experimenting on people with these like, kind of robot things to people, stuff like that. All this stuff is rumors up until this point. And then after this, that woman that survived in the bathroom is telling everyone what actually happened. They're all kind of sitting around the boardroom questioning, how did this get out? And the CEO says, well, I let it out. She immediately like kind of tries to tell him to shut all this stuff down, that their company is going to be more responsible, blah, blah, blah. And then the other guy on the other side of the table, who's not a CEO, I don't know what his position is, but he seems to be like at equal standing with her, at least.
I mean, he's clearly, he might be head of PR.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he is.
He's definitely a C-level board member.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, he's like, it seems to be wielding the same level of power. I mean, he's obviously on the board, whatever, doesn't matter. Right. But yeah, his name is Scott Ridley.
Yes, Scott Ridley.
Okay, that doesn't sound that bad now, but wait till you hear the rest of these people. The other guy on the board, who is the big dude with the beard, who was the guy that led the SWAT team in the beginning, his name is John Carpenter.
Yep.
He's another person on the board. They basically, were like, okay, yeah, we'll shut everything down. Everything's okay. And she basically decides that she needs to talk to the guy that designed all this stuff, right? There's like this guy that they have that is kind of like a troll that lives in their basement, that designs all of this, like, weapons for them, right? He's
genius level intellect, though.
Right. Yeah. He's like their inventor, right? He's like the guy that the company's built around, but he just sits in the basement tinkering all day. He doesn't care about the board level stuff.
With like 20 TVs. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So she goes down there to talk to him. And of course, he's like all super edgy. He has like spray paint all over his door that's like, keep out, And she goes into the room and there's all these like action figures everywhere and like goofy cartoons are playing on the TV.
Let me ask you, were those He-Man characters?
Some of them
They seem like He-Man characters. It looked like Beastman.
Some of them were. Not all of
them,
but some of them were, yes. Beastman was in there. Man-at-Arms was in there.
Skeletor, I believe. Skeletor's castle was in there.
Yes. There's lots of He-Man. Okay, it looks like what they did is, because this is like the mid-'90s, right? So It looks like they went into a thrift store and just picked up all the toys that they had there. And they just threw them all on these shelves. Okay, so there's all this like, computer equipment and wires and TV monitors and all this stuff everywhere, right? It's like, again, like the typical, 90s kind of, underground technology kind of look, right?
Hacker.
Right. Yeah. So, Joe Dante, it was Jack Dante, who's played by Brad Dourif. He comes out, and he's the inventor guy, right? And he's all like, why are you touching my stuff? And he's like, again, picture like every like edgy 90s character you can possibly think of. And he is following all of those tropes.
And add 20 years to the age of what
right.
we thought
Yes, exactly. Right. You think the guy would be in his early 20s. He looks like he's 40, right? I mean, but he's got like long hair, which is obviously extensions, which is funny because you can see his shorter hair mixed in with the extensions. Okay. Yes. So like, how short his hair normally was. And they put all these weird long extensions in there. He's wearing like kind of gothy light makeup. He's got like, your typical, shirt with the flannel over it. And he's got like the ripped up jeans. He's got like the claw finger, jewelry things. And one of them's like a little wrench, to show that he's like, a techie guy or whatever.
He reminds me of Hello Fellow Kids meme of what's his name?
Steve Buscemi.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of sort of like that. But again, he's hitting all of the 90s edgy, random, as they used to call it back then, hot buttons, right?
Yeah.
So where like she's trying to talk to him, he doesn't care what she's saying. He's like watching cartoons on TV. He doesn't care. She's trying to tell him, you need to stop this stuff. You need to shut it down. There's like some secret project that he's working on that she can't get access to, even though she's a CEO. And she's like, well, how do you get access to it? He's like, oh, well, you need your key and then you need Scott Ridley's key. She's like, well, how do you get in? And he's like, I am a hacker.
Yes.
It's like, oh, great. And then he, starts reading off like how much money she has in the bank, like what her address and her phone number is. She's like, how do you know all that? He's like, I am a hacker. I mean, it's very, very generic. But again, this is the 90s. Hacking was magic back then.
Correct, but most hackers don't go around announcing they're hackers.
Yeah, obviously. But yeah, this guy is super edgy, so of course he does that. Right. So yeah, basically they come to a standstill where he goes, kind of shakes his fist after she leaves, like, I'll never do what you say, kind of stuff, whatever.
You're not my mom.
Right. Essentially, yes. So she tries to talk to Scott Ridley into helping her open up this vault. He says no. And then she, apparently also, as a CEO, has pickpocket powers.
Yep.
So she pickpockets his swipe card. So she, I don't understand this part. Instead of going into the vault, she goes to another, first she puts on sweatpants
Disguise.
Right.
Disguise.
And then she goes to like this engineering room and then scans in there, and then she's just typing on the computer instead of just going to look what's in the vault. I don't understand what's happening there.
Also in the engineering room, she's not wearing protective eye gear with all the welding going on.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's a OSHA violation here.
Okay, so they have a kind of a weird standoff. This starts in her office, but eventually moves to the engineering room because she needs to know what he's doing. But anyway, in the office, he kind of, threatens her that she needs to like back off and let him do his thing because he's making all the company money. And if she doesn't back off, he's going to try tanking everything. And then he like blackmails her and threatens her, blah, 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 typical evil stuff. He does actually pull out a gun and threaten her with it. And then she somehow gets the gun and then threatens him with it. But he just like leaves in a huff, like, oh, I don't care about guns in my face.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then, she goes to this engineering room. Okay. So, as she's like typing away on this computer, like trying to find out more information about, Brad Dourif or Jack Dante, Jack Dante goes and has a meeting in the conference room with Scott Ridley, to, basically threaten him, because, again, at this point, he knows that she's using his card to get into the system. And he's like saying, oh, she stole it from me. But obviously he knew that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he just keeps threatening him. And essentially he like takes out this big, like goofy remote control with a key and a button, like a dead man's switch button for some reason. And you want to know what I've been working on? And he turns the key and turns it on. And it's like, we see like the kind of POV of like a Terminator type, like a 90s video game version of like the Terminator vision.
Yeah.
Where this monster comes out of the vault that, that the CEO was trying to get into. So this, whatever it is coming out of this giant vault, and it, they show it running upstairs and running through hallways and all this stuff. And it gets to the conference room. And then, he basically takes his hand off the dead man switch and shows him his new creation, which is like a giant kill bot. I mean, it looks kind of like a metal xenomorph.
Yeah.
More or less. That's got like big knives for teeth and like huge big knife hands. I mean,
yep.
Essentially what it is. Anyway. This thing chases and kills, Scott Ridley. And then, basically, Brad Dourif Jack Dante goes down to the room to confront, the CEO. They're kind of like playing this cat and mouse game where, she's like typing stuff in the machine and he's like trying to figure out what she's doing. Anyway, she ends up taking away, Jack Dante's access to the computer system. Which, I mean, for a hacker of his caliber, I wouldn't think that would matter, but
from a CEO?
Yeah, he seems very upset by that. So they're kind of like, fighting each other. John Carpenter comes in at this point, and is like trying to figure out what's going on and sort of break it up. Brad Dourif kind of, pulls a gun and is like trying to threaten everybody. And then our other three guys who I think there was a scene before this that showed them like starting their break in and their planning of their heist. But, there's three.
Let's call them people terrorists.
Right. Yeah. So they basically plan this heist. They're going to break into this corporation and kind of, I guess, steal all their money. I don't know. That's what the plan sounded like to me.
Right.
Whatever. But they come in and the three guys are named, the leader guy is named Sam Raimi. And the two other guys are named Wayland and Yutani.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a running theme we have going with these characters. Anyway, so they are now in the building at this point, and at that moment they come into the room, and they all have assault rifles, and they're basically like gonna get their access cards, and then they have to get their unlock sequences. They don't really explain what that is, but they have to apparently get that from them. So they hold everybody up. Everybody, kind of holds their hands up, including Jack Dante. who, there's a comical scene where they keep pulling guns off of him. Probably 10, 12 guns they pull
something
out.
Like that, yeah.
Goofy knives and stuff. Again, like, your typical edgy 90s weapons. And at this point, they're all like, okay, we're going to go down to this vault, and we're going to use your cards and your unlock codes to get in this vault, right? They're like, okay, so they leave one guy behind to watch the three people while Sam Raimi and Wayland go down to break into the vault. So they go down, they break into the vault, so they have to cut through. I don't know how they got this giant laser drill thing into the building, because they did not have it before. But all of a sudden they have it now. It's this giant laser drill that cuts a huge hole in this like vault door. After Jack Dante convinces them that it would be easier to cut through this vault door instead of the main vault door, which they just believe and do so. They cut open the door, and of course they free the Killbot.
Yep.
Or the Death Machine.
Death Machine, yes.
Yeah, so Wayland gets killed. Jack Dante gets away, but Sam Raimi does manage to make it back up to the other three guys. So now we have Sam Raimi, Yutani, the CEO lady, and then John Carpenter, who's the bigger guy with the beard, the other bored guy, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Jack Dante has slunk back into his, cool, edgy dungeon in the basement, and is like, kind of poking fun at them through like, video kind of screens and stuff as they're trying to they're trying to escape the building, more or less. So it kind of goes on for a little bit of cat and mouse, and they eventually make it up to they're on an elevator. There's a scene in the elevator where John Carpenter manages to take the gun. He finds out that the dudes with the assault rifles, they're not actually loaded, that they're part of like this humanist movement that would like, they'd never hurt anybody. They were just here to like liberate the money or whatever.
Right.
So they're there to liberate the money, and then at that point, the guy with the John Carpenter pulls out a gun and then starts kind of like ordering them around, right? So he makes them all get in the elevator. They're going up the elevator. Killbot attacks the elevator. Essentially, rips a big hole in the floor. John Carpenter ends up dying as a result of this. Yutani gets a big old knife hand to the leg.
Yeah.
But everybody else kind of sort of survives to where the Killbot or Death Machine falls to the bottom of the elevator shaft. And at this point, I think they're like at 70 floors up or something.
Yeah, this place is huge.
Yeah, it's a giant, big corporate headquarters, like skyscraper.
Yeah.
So eventually they get out of that. So now it's just CEO lady, Sam Raimi, and an injured Yutani. So they managed to make it to this other floor where she tries to use her card and she can't get in. So this is obviously some kind of secret place. Sam Raimi has John Carpenter's card and his unlock code, so he was able to get in with that. This is where they find the place where, like the guy in the beginning of the movie, who is apparently an injured military vet, is like made into like a machine. Like they download his personality out of his head and make him like a killing machine, I guess.
Yeah.
They put him in this like little mech exoskeleton suit, so he's like, tougher, stronger, and he's got no emotions, and he's like, I guess efficient, whatever. It essentially turns into like a machine, kind of.
Yeah.
So, when they're in there, Brad Dourif threatens them again. In this video screen, they find out that the CEO lady had like a tracking chip implanted in her arm, so he knows where they are. She does cut it out, but at this point, it's too late. So Sam Raimi volunteers to go into the exo suit, right?
Knowing that he's going to lose his humanity.
Right. Yeah, but it downloads it to a disk. And apparently you can upload it back later, but somebody has to make the sacrifice at least temporarily.
Right.
Yutani wants to do it, but he's injured, so he really can't. So Sam Raimi uploads himself into this machine, and then he goes off to try to find the Killbot. And so they're just kind of sitting there and waiting for a little bit, and then they just decide to go find him anyway. I don't think they have a reason why. They just decide that, that they don't feel like it's right to leave him alone. So they grab a bunch of guns and they go down and follow him. There's kind of a cat and mouse thing where, robot Sam Raimi is trying to find a killbot, and it's like hiding from him. But now at this point, we find out that the killbot reads pheromones and fear. That's how it knows who to kill. Right. Which is interesting because like earlier, like he could have it target a specific person, but now it keys on fear. So I thought that was a bit of a difference of like what its purpose was, but I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't read fear on Sam Raimi because obviously he's more of a machine at this point. But he does eventually find CEO Lady and Yutani because they're just regular people. So there's a fight back and forth. Killbot takes a missile from Sam Raimi, but keeps coming. They manage to find this what is it? It's like a construction hoist that like is on the exterior of the building. And after like a minor fight there, they manage to get on the hoist. Yutani dies, trying to like buy them enough time to get on this hoist to go down. On their way down, she uploads Sam Raimi's personality back into him. So he's still in the mech suit thing, but now he's himself now. And so then when they get to the bottom, they go back inside the building through like an open garage door. And then they kind of make their way down to the vaults again, because now they're going to try to get away from the kill, because the killbot jumps off the building and lands on the ground and survives.
Yep.
So they're trying to go through these vaults and close these garage doors behind him to try to slow him down. It doesn't really slow him down very much, but they're basically trying to get to this big bulkhead vault door because they think that maybe the killbot won't be able to get past it. They do get to that door. They do open the door, but they climb over the top, but it's not fast enough.
It's the world's slowest door.
Right. So yeah, they get in there. And of course, this is when Jack Dante shows back up in person, holding the actual controller for the death machine. And he kind of lets it go so he can do his villain monologue type thing. It doesn't really say anything of interest. He's just being all edgy and,
right.
Basically, at this point, he has like somehow fallen in love with the CEO and thinks that she's his girlfriend. And like, he's just very upset that she is not like, falling for his charms or whatever.
Right.
Bizarre. I don't know what was happening here, but, so yeah, they're upset about that. Eventually she somehow gets the controller away from him. And then they have like some like weird explosive stuff that they got from it's like event explosives or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Anyway, so they get out of the vault and they manage to close the vault. So now it's Jack Dante in the vault with the death machine, but now the CEO lady has the controls.
Yeah.
And then at the end, she just kind of lets go of the controls, and then it, I'm assuming, kills Jack Dante. They don't really show most of that, but Jack Dante gets controls. Now, there is some weird, bizarre stuff that happens in between there. I'm only mentioning it because I thought they were like super weird, interesting. Is that there's this scene where, from doing all of his hacking, Jack Dante can't figure out, I guess, what makes the CEO lady tick, because from all his hacking, he was able to find out that her family disowned her for some reason, but he couldn't find out why.
Correct.
And then later on, he does find out what happens. And, she has this weird crying breakdown where she tells him the story. And it was like she was giving her baby a bath in the sink. And somehow the baby's arm got stuck in the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
And it and it accidentally got turned on, and then so the baby's arm got ripped off, and then I guess the baby died from blood loss. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
It was a bizarre scene. It was a bizarre thing. I only mentioned it because there's like these weird dreams that she was having where it was like looking into a drain with there's all kinds of like weird flesh in it and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought those were goofy, weird, interesting, but I only mentioned at the end because it doesn't really fit with the rest of the movie, but I figured I'd just make a point.
No, it's more of a, like, it seems like an add-on backstory.
Right. Yeah. This is, I guess, kind of leading up to why obviously she was never his girlfriend, but he was like obsessing about that. But this is like parts of why he was obsessed, I guess.
The mystery.
Right.
Yeah, because he prides himself on having all the knowledge.
Right. Yeah, because he's a hacker.
Right, and because he didn't have this knowledge, there's this intrigue, this mystery about her.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, movie over.
Yep. So what are your first thoughts on this?
First thoughts, I mean, I pretty much mentioned most of them. I mean, just how ultra 90s this movie was. I mean, it was like take every bad trope of the 90s and just pump it in this movie, and it's right there. Mean, technically it does check all the cyberpunk boxes. And I think it did a pretty decent job with that. I mean, it was interesting. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, you look at the cover of this movie and you're like, yeah, this is going to be horrible. I mean, there's no way this can be good, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. I'll give it that.
But even, I mean, I definitely agree with that assessment because it's something we both missed somehow in the 90s.
Well, again, this movie wasn't very big. I mean, interesting thing is that the next movie that the guy made this movie was Blade.
Yeah.
So he literally has 4 movies on his resume. Of only 4. This one is the first one, which no one has ever heard of, right?
Yeah.
The second one is Blade, which was huge.
Yes.
The third one is some movie that is very rare and hard to find. It was only played at like some festivals or something. Didn't really have any wide release. I've never seen it. I don't know. And the fourth one is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which ended multiple careers. 1, Sean Connery, and 2, this guy. Stephen Norrington is the guy's name, the writer-director.
Yeah.
But yeah, it basically ended everyone's career that was a part of it. And that was it. Those are the only 4 movies that he ever made.
Which is a shame because I actually enjoyed the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad, but for some reason it like tanked everything. Again,
yes.
like Sean Connery, that was his last movie. He refused to do any movies after that.
Yep.
This poor guy got like essentially blacklisted, never made another movie. I mean, it was a lot of interesting, weird things. I thought it was a fun movie. I didn't think it was that bad, but I haven't seen it recently. I haven't seen it since it came out, but
right.
When it came out, it was all right.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you feel like you missed out? Like, if you were watching this movie when it came out, say 1996, would you have enjoyed it more?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah. Me in 1996, yes, I would have liked this movie a lot more than I like it now. Again, I like it now, but I would have liked it a lot more back then because I was like obsessed with trying to find more like cyberpunk movies. I was obsessed with cyberpunk media in general. But so like any other kind of cyberpunk movie, I would have loved to see. And again, I did a lot of. Again, this was kind of pre-internet, at least for me. At this time, I don't think we had internet until 98. So this was a little bit before that time. And I never found it in any of my searches. I never heard of it.
No, and that's what's really bizarre is because this came out in 95, so it was probably released in video in 96, and that's when I started getting into horror movies, and I've never recalled seeing this name. Ever.
No.
It was just bizarre. For us to not know the movie, at least the name of it, is weird, I feel.
Right. And like I said, I mean, there's some names in there.
There
was the one guy, I can't remember his name now, but he's the guy that he's in all like the latest Rob Zombie movies. He was the third guy in 3 from Hell. He was the head hunter guy in 31.
Yeah, he was the preacher in Doom. He was in Barbarian very recently.
Yes, yeah, he was the old man in Barbarian. Yeah, I mean, so he's been in a lot of stuff, and I know him. He's especially big in the horror world. I wish I could remember his name, but I can't remember it right now. But he's in it. He's Scott Ridley.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the guy that plays John Carpenter, he's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah. And Brad Dourif.
Yeah, I mean, of course. But yeah, I mean, so there's like decent names in it. I don't know. I guess I never went down rabbit holes of any of those people. But
yeah, there's names of people, especially in horror movies, that we enjoy.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that, like I said, that was surprising. My first thought, initial thought was, this seems like it's a 2-hour movie, because it was.
Yeah, it was. I was surprised.
Long.
Yeah,
it was long.
When I was looking at, because I always look at how long something's going to be when I'm planning it out, and like this, and I'm like 2 hours. Like, why is this movie 2 hours long? Like, these movies I've never heard of are never that long.
No, we're lucky if they're over an hour.
Yeah,
most of them are like 70 minutes.
Well, yeah, Chopping Mall is, I think, an hour and 15 minutes long.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's. I need to rewatch it. It wasn't piquing my interest initially. And when a movie, especially when we're doing these for the podcast, if I'm not paying as much attention as I feel I should, and I'm blanking out on like a couple parts, I will go back and just rewatch those parts, like a 15-minute thing here. I'm like, okay, how'd that happen? I'll just go back and rewind it, and rewatch it again.
I do the same thing with books, if it makes you feel better. Okay. Sometimes I'll get to a point and I'm like, okay, that happened, but I don't remember that happening. So I'll go back, a few pages and reread. Oh, okay, all right, that's what happened. Yeah. So I do the same thing. I think it's just brains blanking out and daydreaming while you're reading or watching stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel that's what happened to me for this movie. So I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch this again with more attention to it. Like I said, it wasn't drawing me in. It was interesting, but wasn't drawing me in enough, I'd say.
I hear you.
What about highlights for you?
Highlights. I mean, I really enjoyed the cyberpunk aspect of it. I mean, they really did a good job with that. Where you got like, the Humanist Alliance guys are kind of like the kind of neo 90s punk, and I think they nailed that style pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, it just overall, I mean, the kind of like, overpowering corporate aspect, the corporate, doing whatever they feel like with no oversight kind of stuff. I mean, all those big major cyberpunk themes are all here. Again, mixed with that 90s randomness, but they're all here, and I think that's cool. I mean, I think that the world building here is pretty good. I mean, again, the movie is not fantastic or anything, but I think the world building, you can tell this was somebody's like dream. This was somebody's like, world that was crafted with love at one point in time.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. That is a good highlight. You can tell the guy is a horror nerd, hands down. And likes cyberpunk, and I feel like what he thought corporate America was like, I guess.
Well, right? that is how corporate America is depicted in cyberpunk, like media.
Yeah,
is like, the corporate people are anything to make money. Screw the little guy. Well, we don't care what the government says we can and can't do. We're going to, do whatever we want anyway, at the detriment of the regular person.
Yeah. Okay. What about low points for you?
Low points would have to be probably the CGI. And granted, it is not used very often in this.
No.
But like the intro where like they're doing like the people's names and the name of the movie, it is so bad. You think that you just kind of hold that back. Like, this is the beginning of the movie. Don't throw that out there. Like, people are going to turn this movie off seeing how bad that is. I mean, yes, I understand this is, the mid 90s, but I mean, come on. I mean, you're dealing with like Jurassic Park at this point. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of competition you got, and you're putting those title cards up. Like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the like the weight, the crappy, like metallic flow you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so for me, low point is how over the top the idea of a hacker was, but I think that it's just the stylization of hackers in the 90s. They were magicians. They were gods, essentially, of the computer world, and no one understood what they really were and what they did. And I think you can see that in here. It's just course, like, yeah. Also, be more original with names. Like, I get what you're doing. Like, okay, Scott Ridley. Yeah, we all know who it is. And then you have the Weyland-Yutani, which is still from Ridley Scott's mind. I'm just wondering if the order they're killed in is what he thought of the directors or the company's names that he had in it. Like, did Sam Raimi make it in because he likes Sam Raimi the most? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, some again, Scott Ridley, he at least reversed the names.
Right.
But yeah, with John Carpenter and Sam Raimi, he didn't even bother. So
yeah, and you nailed it on the head when you accidentally called him Joe Dante, because it's Joe Dante that he was, right. He changed it from Joe to Jack, at least. I guess. Right. I guess that's something. Yeah, like, it's like I said, it's one thing when it's like, I guess, people in that world, right? Like, when Bruce Campbell did My Name is Bruce, and he named his dog Sam and Rob. So for Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert, his frequent collaborators, and he's just poking fun at them in his movie that he wrote himself. I think that's more acceptable than just picking names, because I don't know if anyone knows who this guy is to have picked up like the biggest names in horror and sci-fi.
Well, again, I just think this was like his kind of labor of love type thing, and I don't know what the how these things came to be, like how this movie came to be. I don't know how he got this much kind of leeway to make whatever he wanted to make.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, the end result is pretty decent, especially for a 2-hour long movie. But it's just an interesting star alignment moment, right? I would just wonder what happened to make this movie greenlit. Is bizarre to me.
Right. All right. How about AI win or AI fail for you?
AI fail simply because there was no, even with all this hacking talk, there was never any talk of this being networked to anything else. It was just like the one kill bot with the one kill switch. So like, essentially if you take out this one death machine, that's it. It's done. So as a threat to greater humanity, no.
Yeah. Now, if the guy survived and had, the manufacturing line of these, then absolutely.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree. AI fail. Like I said, it just seemed like a love letter, more cyberpunk than RoboCop and love letter to horror movies. But yeah. All right. So how many reboots out of 10 for you?
I mean, this one's it's tough. I would say probably a 6. 6 reboots out of 10. So I'd rewatch it, but I'd have to have a beer first.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I was thinking 6 as well, just because I need to rewatch it, pay more attention, but probably after the next rewatch, probably not going to watch it again, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably rewatch it at some point in time, but not anytime in the near future.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, completely agree. All right, and you're going to lead us into the next one as well.
Yes. Screamers, which is a 96 movie starring Peter Weller. I don't think there's anybody else really famous in this. Peter Weller is basically the only one. But 96, based on a story by Philip K. Dick, one of my favorite writers, of course. And I watched it when it came out, simply because, again, I was obsessed with Philip K. Dick at the time. So anything that had his name on it, I watched, even though most of the interpretations of his work, especially made into movie form, are usually horrible.
Yes.
But I did have to watch all of them.
And that's fair. And also, you're a Peter Weller fan.
Oh yeah, Peter Weller's awesome. I mean, obviously, I was introduced to him with RoboCop, but I've watched just about everything else Peter Weller's been in because he's awesome.
Right.
Anyway, so Screamers is basically opens up a little crawl saying that this is in the future. I believe it's 2078, right?
Yeah.
So in this future, they discover this new element, right? And this new element is like this answers all the world's energy problems. Because like a tiny little bit of this can power a spaceship to go all the way from Earth to Saturn, right? So it basically, changes the world because all the energy needs are changed and being met very easily. Yeah. And what happens is they find the main node where they're mining all this stuff from is on this planet called Sirius 6B. And eventually they find out that the mining process is causing a ridiculous amount of radiation to be released onto the planet. So all the miners are getting sick. The scientists doing the studies see that this is detrimental to everyone on the planet, right? So the scientists and the miners get together and they immediately say, this needs to be shut down. It needs to stop. We need to find a safer way to do this, or we need to find some other way to do it because everybody's getting cancer, sick, and dying. It needs to stop. And so the kind of corporation that owns all this stuff was called the NEB, or the New Economic Bloc. It's a goofy name, but the NEB or NEBs is what they call them. Their answer is to basically nuke them all. So they just drop nukes on the planet as their answer. So they start a war. So it's basically the miners and the scientists get together. They call themselves the Alliance. And the NEBs are the corporate people, and they're fighting. The war is only taking place on this planet. They do both have a presence back on Earth, but it's just a Cold War on Earth where they're trying to one up each other in the science department. And essentially what happens is the Alliance gets the upper hand because they developed what they call Screamers. That's their nickname. But they're essentially, they call them autonomous swords. So they're essentially like little bitty robots that kind of swim through the ground, and they have like big spinning blades on them. So if anybody that's not wearing like a friend or foe responder wristband, if they get, anywhere close to Alliance, military facilities, these Screamers run, through the ground and then jump up and just cut you in half, cut you in pieces and kill you.
Yeah, they do.
Right. So basically, because of these Screamers being put in place, the Alliances gets the upper hand, which, they did not have up until that point because the NEBs obviously had more money and more resources and stuff. So that kind of tips the scale a little bit. And then basically that's when the movie opens up. At this point, it's been a complete stalemate for 6 months to where they haven't even seen an enemy soldier in that long. They're just kind of sitting there and waiting.
Well, this is like year 10 of the war.
Right, yeah. The war has been going on for a long time. But at this point, the Screamers have been, in place for a while. They got them the upper hand. At this point, they hadn't even seen an enemy soldier in like 6 months. They're just kind of sitting there waiting, and that's it. Anyway, so they're all kind of sitting around playing cards, because again, nothing's happened for 6 months. To where they see one lone enemy soldier come over this hill. And they're kind of watching him, and the Screamers come out. They're chasing him down. They just kind of look like, like super fast moles under the ground when they're kind of going to attack. And they make their loud screaming noise, of course. And so, he's fighting him off, and he's like holding up this kind of baton looking thing. But eventually the Screamers kill them all. So the kind of guy who's like the sergeant in charge there, he walks out. The Screamers are still tearing this guy apart and pulling them underground and stuff. But he manages to pull the baton out of his hand before they, totally cut him apart. Yeah. He brings it in to the commander. The commander is Peter Weller. He's the commander of, I'm assuming all of the Alliance forces on the planet, because there doesn't seem to be anyone above him. The only people he answers to are holograms back on Earth. So he opens this baton up, and it's basically a call from the enemy NEB side to do a peace agreement. It's like basically you and another officer come to our base so that we can work out a peace agreement. Because they found the element that had been mined on that planet. They found it on a different planet, which means that the NEBs are now going to concentrate all of their forces on, getting this element from this other planet. They're kind of pulling out from this planet, is what they're told. So they call their home office. The hologram from the home office basically tells them, yeah, they're concentrating on that other planet. We're cool with ending the war. You go out there, you talk the peace, we'll end this whole thing. They're like, okay,
right.
So, we'll go out there. So he decides to go out there. But right before that happens, this big ship crashes right out in front of their bunker. And this bunker, it's, this plane basically says Sirius 6B transportation, which obviously doesn't exist. Everybody on this ship is dead except for one grunt guy that they have to cut out of this plane. And he doesn't really know what's going on. All he knows is they were going to this other planet that they discovered the ore on. So he was going to fight. So essentially they're going to be another war on that other planet. And that's why they're calling for peace on this one so that they can concentrate their forces on that other planet. But they don't want to tell the people on this planet that the war is going to be over because they just want them to sit there. And they kind of figure out that, they're being lied to because the guy that they cut out of the plane tells them that the hologram he's been talking to was fired years ago.
Yeah.
So obviously at this point, he knows they're being lied to, so he's still going forward with the mission, but not for the reason that they tell him to. Now he's going forward with it because he just wants it to end. He wants to tell them the truth on the other side so they can just stop this fighting and they can just start living again. So he decides to take the kid, the grunt that they pulled out of the plane. Both of them are going to go to the Neb base to work on a peace. So they leave. They walk through the kind of ruined city where he has to explain to the grunt guy, what exactly happened to them. This is where he describes the nukes coming down and, the war that's been going on forever, stuff like that. And they meet this little kid who's been living in the ruins of the city. And he keeps asking to, can I come with you? Can I come with you? So they camp out with him for a little bit. They try to abandon him at first, but, kind of feel for him. So they decide to bring him with. And they camp out and they decide to head out to the Neb base in the morning. They head to the Neb base. Once they get there, they're walking forward with the kid and somebody in the base shoots and kills the kid, which, at this point they're like, what the hell happened? But then they look at the kid and the kid was a robot.
Yep.
Peter Weller looks through him and finds the control chip, and it's a screamer. It's got the Alliance mark on it. And he's like, what the hell is this? We never heard of this, So they end up going into the Neb base. There's these two kind of Neb soldiers there. I don't remember that. One's Becker, one's Ross.
Yeah.
Ross is the kind of nervous guy with glasses. Becker is the tough guy with tattoos on his eye. He's got the teardrops on his eye, you see.
Yeah, Ross is constantly chewing on his cord from his jacket.
Right. Yeah. 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 At first I thought it was some kind of chewing tobacco or maybe a vanilla bean, but no, yeah, it's just the pull string for his zipper.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, so they basically tell them that is the newest version of the Screamer and that they've evolved. And he's like, what do you mean? They evolved? They're not supposed to do that, And he's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. That's what happened. We're basically the only thing that's left of our whole unit is them two. And then they have a kind of commanding officer, lady. What was her name? Jessica, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jessica was their commanding officer. They're the only three that's left from their whole unit because, essentially they're kind of hiding out in this little subsection of the base. But the main section of the base was attacked by all of these kids. There was they said there was hundreds of these kids that attacked the base and killed everyone. And they managed to get out and hide in this little subsection, but everybody else is dead. So they basically I got to talk to Peter Weller, says, I got to talk to this guy about the peace agreement. And they're like, well, if he's alive, he's in there, So they kind of convince everybody to get together and to go help him, to get in there to meet up so they can all have this peace agreement. So they go in, they kind of have to break back into the main facility. They get in there and everybody's dead. There's just dead bodies and blood and stuff everywhere. They get to their main communications hub, and they're trying to communicate out And in the process of doing that, one of the little screamers, which has like morphed, they call it like a revised version. It doesn't look like the original screamers. It looks like a little, like a lizard, like a metal lizard with like spinning blade hands.
It looked like a chameleon.
Yeah.
So
that thing's coming in there, and Peter Weller and the grunt dude are safe because they have their transmitters. But and if they stay close enough to the other people, they ignore them as well. But they get nervous, obviously, because these things have killed a lot of their friends. So the one dude, Ross, panics and starts shooting it, and he ends up shooting the communication satellite. So instead of being able to communicate back to their base, now they can't communicate at all.
Right.
So they essentially like escape. They get back to their other kind of subsection that they were in before. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They basically figure out that the screamers have evolved over time by themselves.
Right. Well, because he was able to save chips and scan them in the computer.
Right.
And it said that the kid was Model 3.
Right. Yeah, and they said that the original screamers, like that's what they knew about because that's what the scientists people back on Earth told them to build. They built those, and they're autonomous. They did everything themselves.
As they said, they turned the switch on and ran.
Yeah, they turned the switch on and ran. They apparently had like a nerve center underground somewhere that no one has ever seen because again, they're all by themselves. Yeah. So essentially, over time, these things have learned and evolved. The chameleon looking thing with the legs and all that is the version 1 revised. So that's like the upgraded version of the original Screamer. The version 2 is a version, the Neb guys tell him it was a wounded soldier that kept asking for help. And when he went over to help it would, spinning blade hands and kill you. And the version 3 is this David, which is the little kid that asks for help.
Take me with you.
Right, yeah, the take me with you thing. And that's when they say, the screamers, even though they seem to be, fully kind of conscious almost, they still repeat the one line, which is like their core programming. Right. That's why the kid kept saying, "Can I come with you? Can I come with you?" That was his core programming. And then as they're talking about that, Ross keeps saying, "Get off my back," which he's been saying the whole time they've been together. So Becker at this point goes, he's one of them, because he keeps saying that over and over and over again.
And he wouldn't drink the whiskey or scotch.
Right. Yeah. So he's like, he wouldn't drink the whiskey that, he keeps repeating the same line over again. He's one of them. So he like stabs him with his knife, where he finds out that, he's bleeding, right? There's blood. So he just now killed that guy, who turned out to be human. So at this point they're like, well, maybe we'll kill Becker. Maybe he's one too. Right. And he just kind of like, puts his hands up like, go ahead, but they decide not to.
Yes.
And at this point they just decide, okay, well, everything's screwed. Well, our bunker is still fine. Let's go back to our Alliance bunker and hide out.
Yeah.
So they all make the trek back to their bunker. They can't get in contact with the bunker until they're within visual range of it. And then when they get within visual range of it, Peter Weller's talking to the commander dude, who was the sergeant guy we talked to earlier, Chuck. Yeah.
Or Chuck or Doug?
It's Chuck.
Okay.
And he's talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, come on in. And he keeps repeating that over and over again.
Come on down.
Yeah, come on down. And so he's like, "Okay, can I talk to, what's he say? Can I talk to Don Giovanni?" Which is, again, earlier he was listening to opera.
Yeah.
But he was listening to Don Giovanni. So that guy knows that's the name of a song. And so instead of saying, "Hey, that's not a person, that's a song," he goes, "Hold on, let me get him." And so he goes, "Hey, Don Giovanni, this is Wolfgang. How you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, doing great. Come on down." Again.
Right.
So like at this point they know that the Alliance bunker has been taken over. As they're like trying to retreat, the door opens and all these Davids, little kids, start pouring out.
Hundreds.
Right. So they have, their weapons and they're trying to like fight them back, but they just keep coming. They did have a little like nuclear rocket.
Yes.
That he shoots at like this, I guess like a fuel tank or something. That takes out all of them. But yeah, basically at this point, the grunt dude gets hurt. And he gets knocked out. And when he wakes up, he sees that Becker is like on the ground asking for help, like, clutching his chest and kind of wiggling around, asking for help. And he goes to help him. And this is where we find out that Becker was a screamer the whole time. He was a version 2.
Yep.
So yeah, he basically kills the grunt guy by like squeezing his waist.
Yes, he makes him thin.
Yeah, he like squeezes his waist and kills him there.
He throws him against a pipe as well.
Right. Well, it's just a bizarre kill.
Yeah.
So then Peter Weller kind of fights him. He shoots him in the face, and then he eventually
he shoots him again, and like the shot like rips him in half.
Yeah. He blows in half, and whatever. His other half kind of walks around for a second and then just falls down.
Right.
So then it's just him and Jessica left, and at this point they kind of force this kind of weird love story on it. So where they're like, "Oh, we're the only two still alive," and then they like start kissing and stuff. It's kind of
well.
bizarre.
In fairness, she does a horse bath in front of him, and he calls her the most beautiful woman he's ever seen.
Well, yeah, but also I think that she was like the only woman that he's seen in a very, very long time.
Probably like 10 years.
Right. So anyway, yeah, I mean, yeah, but that was it. That was the only like any kind of like intimate moment they had up until that point. And then now all of a sudden they're like, oh, everybody else is dead. We're in love now.
Right. And he does, but he also, after killing Becker, he cuts her hands.
Well, to make sure that she's healed.
Right. And she bleeds.
Right.
And he was going to do it too.
And she like,
stops him.
Yeah, she's like, you don't have to. I already know you're human.
Yeah.
So now they're like, oh, they're both human. They're both alive. Now they're in love. Right. So there's like a weird.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. A weird makeout scene anyway. And then he goes, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm the commander. I have access to a shuttle that can get us off the planet.
Well, assumed shuttle. He was told there's one. He didn't know if it actually existed.
Right. Yeah. So they go to this kind of, I guess, hidden location. He puts his hand on it, opens up, they go inside. There is a little ship down there. And so he sends her down to get the ship ready, and he's got to get this crane out of the way. And as he's trying to get this crane out of the way, there's a wire missing, so he has to go on the crane to like physically do it. The sergeant guy comes and punches him and knocks him down, and it turns out that it's like the screamer that was Becker somehow skinned the other guy and like got inside his body or something. I don't know. It's kind of how they like said it.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of how they pushed it.
He was going to rip off his skin and then come in because he was able to imitate their voice.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that was his plan. He eventually kind of gets around him. And eventually defeats him. He falls down, dies, whatever.
Into a laser.
Yeah. He falls into a laser and then gets eliminated. And then he goes down and meets up with her like, okay, the shuttle can only hold one. So he's like, oh, you need to go. And she's like, no, I can't go. And he's like, no, really, you need to go. And he's like, no, really, I can't go. And he's like, why? And she's like, because I'm a machine.
Yep.
And this is where we find out that she is a screamer. Apparently, a version 4, I'm guessing, because she's not any of the other
Model 4. Because they found the control chip that he had never seen that had a different language on it.
Right.
So I'm assuming it's because it's that machine language, so he didn't understand it.
Well, yeah, I think that was the one he pulled out of Becker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so they, they're all kind of weird. And he's like, I don't care. We're still in love. We can still go together. Like, I mean, that's fair. But at this point, it's like, okay, well, if you're a robot, you don't need air.
Right.
So we can still both go.
Yep.
Right. They should have just got in and left. Anyway, they don't. And then another one shows up, right? Another version 4 shows up. And then there's a fight between the two version 4s. And the interesting thing is they're fighting back and forth while Peter Weller kind of got knocked down, right?
Yeah.
He ends up getting the flare gun from this ship, and he can't even see their faces. I mean, obviously they look identical, right? But at this point, he had left the fight and then came back, so he doesn't know which one is which.
Right.
And he just randomly shoots one, and they don't ever acknowledge the fact that he may have shot the wrong one. Like, how would he know? They're both wearing the same outfit. They both look exactly the same. How would he know?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's never brought up.
Right.
So anyway, yeah. So the one kills the other one, and then he manages to kill that one. So everybody's dead except for him. So he just gets in the ship and confirms that he's going to take off, and then he takes off for Earth. And as he's going back to Earth, we see that David's little teddy bear is in the ship, and the teddy bear starts moving on its own, showing that it is now a screamer and that he's potentially bringing it back to Earth.
Yep.
If he doesn't find it on the way back.
Correct.
Movie over.
Yes. So what were your first thoughts? I mean, this wasn't the first time you've seen it, but it's the first time in probably 25 years.
Yeah, it's the first time since 96 when it came out.
Yeah.
It was good. And I was kind of surprised at how well it holds up, because a lot of the movies that I watched as a kid, when I watch them now, I'm very disappointed. Like movies that I liked a lot and I watch them later, I'm like, wow, this is a terrible movie. I had terrible taste as a kid, I guess, as you get older, you understand what's good and what's bad. You have a more refined palate, right? I guess you could say. But yeah, I always had this, good image in my head of this movie, and I was always scared to watch it again because I didn't want to hate it. But watching it again, it wasn't as good as I remember, but it was still really good. Like, I still enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it held up decently well to the vision in my head, which is pretty good 25 years later, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, there's so little of this movie I remembered from the first time I watched it, which is the only time I'd watched it until today. It's an interesting movie. Like, it's sci-fi-ish, but it's also horror-ish, right? Mm-hmm. Sci-fi because the robotics, but horror is they are essentially getting picked off one by one. You also go into this thing of who's human and who's not.
Right.
So you get into the Thing territory as well. So it's like Terminator meets the Thing meets, I don't know, like Callisto Protocol or really The Expanse.
Yeah. No, I think the funny thing is that, right, when they meet up with the other Nebs, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing all of them were screamers. Because if 2 out of the 3 were screamers, why would they bother having a human there at all?
So you're saying Ross was a...
I'm saying Ross was... I'm saying Ross was too. I'm saying he was another version. He was like a version 5. Or maybe he was the 4 and she was the 5.
Something like that.
Right. I think he was too, and I think that was just one of the things they did to kind of make you think that Becker was human, is why would a machine kill... what I don't know. I don't know what game they were playing there, but I think Ross was not human either.
Right, because we already showed that Jessica was also able to bleed.
Right. Yeah. She was able to bleed. We didn't find that out until close to the end that would happen. So yeah, I think that Ross was, and I think that was because Ross was like kind of glitching, where he kept saying "get off my back" over and over and over again, while they were talking about them saying, they only repeat their programming over and over and over again. So I think
everybody killed because he doesn't give up the game.
Right. Yeah. Like, he wasn't functioning at a high enough level to where they thought they could get away with it. So I think that's why I don't think he died. I think they just stabbed him so that he could pretend to be dead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely worth the rewatch, and I should probably watch this again at some other point as well. I think you're right. It did hold up really, really well. And it's nice because it didn't seem like 90s future either.
No, yeah, it seemed like that. It was like a grim enough, dark enough future where it's probably possible.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, highlights for you.
Highlights is again, I like how the screamers, they show like their kind of evolution. They don't ever like give it completely away. Like, I mean, obviously, like what the screamers were actually doing, what their main plan was. I mean, yeah, like, we want to get to Earth to kill everybody, but obviously there was more to it than that, because if that was their goal, they could have easily done that.
Right.
So there's a lot of going on behind the scenes of like what their real intentions were that we don't know. And I think that was just interesting to me. Just, I mean, showing like what their priorities were, what they were doing, I think was just super interesting. You know, again, knowing that, you know, all three of those Neb people were probably screamers. Like what were they doing? Why would they bother like not killing them immediately? Like what was the plan there?
I think the plan was to get to that shuttle.
Well, they could have done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They could obviously take over a person and have their body, you know, and their blood and body and voice and all that stuff. So they could have gotten it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And like I said, there's only been one sequel to this, and this came out, what, took 11 years for the sequel to come out?
The sequel came out in 2009.
2009. So like 13 years.
Right. Yeah, I didn't watch the sequel. I was thinking about it, but again, it was, I don't know. The reviews are so bad. And I watched the trailer of it, and it just did not hit any notes for me. So I'm like, nah.
That's fair. That's very fair. Okay. Highlights. Yeah. It, like I said, it holds up pretty well. I don't know why this isn't on my list often enough. I don't know if it just, in my head, at that point in time, it was more sci-fi, but it definitely is completely elements of horror. It is The Thing. It meets like even freaking Riddick meets.
Yeah, and like I said, it's been on my list to rewatch for a long time. I've just kind of feared doing so because I didn't want to ruin that image that I had. Like, I've done that with too many movies, and I'm just kind of, you know, now I'm wary about doing it anymore.
Right, and that's fair. That's fair. What about low points for you though?
Low points. Let's see. I mean, some of the effects are goofy. Like when he shoots the guy in half, like that scene with the legs walking around was terrible. I mean, some of the effects are interesting. I mean, like, you know, they got the little Screamer 1 revised thing walking around. It was obviously like stop motion.
Right.
And that's interesting. Again, it was very slow. I mean, it was good. Just the effects weren't there altogether, but I think that was more of budget than it was not trying hard enough. I think they just didn't have the budget to do anything bigger or better than that.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, definitely low points of that. When I first saw this, I'm like, all right, these are like machine tremors.
Yeah, kinda.
You know, which I love Tremors. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I mean, it's such a good movie, and it does. And you watch it again, it does feel like The Thing. I said that before, and that's what I really like about it. You know, is who's human, who's not, and everything like that. So no, I think it played out pretty well overall, and it felt like it could be 2078. But yeah, low points though. Yeah, definitely the CG that was there. Screaming from the kid was annoying.
Well, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the kid wasn't a great actor, but again, he was also a machine. So I guess that isn't really.
And I like they had varying heights of the kid. Like they couldn't get, like, yeah, when they had the show up of the close up of the kid getting killed, David, that is always the same face. But there's varying heights, and they couldn't get enough people close enough in height to have them all be the same when they were coming out of the bunker.
Well, I guess if you need 100 kids, I mean, it's kind of hard to go, I need 100 kids that are exactly this tall. I mean, no, you just say, give me 100 kids, and then that's what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, do you think it's an AI win or AI fail?
Yeah, the Screamers, if they got to Earth with their ability to self-replicate themselves, yes, they would be a definite danger to humanity. They would definitely take everything over. If they had their time to build their underground little factory,
right.
Yeah, humanity would probably be wiped out or at least severely damaged.
Right. It almost seemed like the generational war that happened with the machines in the Matrix. Like that was the beginnings of it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree that. Yeah, AI would win hands down if it reached Earth.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it reached Earth and then was able to have enough time to build its factory,
Yeah.
then yes.
Yeah. Okay. And how about number of reboots out of 10 for you on
Um, for this one, I'm gonna have to go 7.5 reboots out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth rewatching. It's not an amazing movie, but it's good. It holds up. It's enough for me to want to watch it again at some point. So
Yeah. That's fair. I'm gonna go with 7. It's definitely worth a rewatch. I just like Chopping Mall more just because you have to pay much more attention. And I feel like if I watch it again, that there might be other clues, to determine if who's human, who's not. So yeah, just definitely worth a rewatch just to help figure that out.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, even though I watched the movie that long ago, I still remembered that she was a robot. So like,
did you?
Yeah, I still remember because I remember there being a lady robot, and since there's only one lady in the movie, it's like okay, so this lady is obviously a robot.
Right.
I did not remember that Becker was, but I did remember that she was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. All right. So that brings us into the last movie today's episode. Megan or Megan or Mithrigan. Mithrigan. Yes. And as I'm thinking about, this may be the first movie we have watched in theaters podcast that we had go out and watch. It's that new.
Right? Yeah.
It came out a week ago.
Right. Well, I mean, technically, I think Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yeah. That's true, too.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically,
yes. But yeah, I mean, Killing Tree was a VOD. Jeepers Creepers Reborn was a VOD as well. All right. So, Megan essentially starts off with a young girl named Katie and her parents, which are going through a stupid amount of snow to be driving in first and foremost. They're in Oregon, and we get just back and forth. They talk about having a the whole big thing of screen time in today's society of raising kids, of how much screen time is acceptable. Because you always hear people stuff like that. You can only have so many hours of TV now. But not everyone isn't a latchkey kid put in front of a TV, unfortunately, and screen time stuff like that. But we get really a commercial for like the world's creepiest Furby, I would say, as well, right?
Well, yeah.
You can interact, you can do all these things with your, what the hell was it called?
Perpetual friend or something like that.
Perpetual pet, or perpetual friend, something like that. But it's essentially a giant Furby that even if you fed it too much in the game, it would have stuff to crap it out, and stuff like that. So it's kind of like she's playing with it, they're arguing, and you got a little exposition dump from her, like, her aunt gave this to her, and she works at the company that makes these, so she probably got it for free. Right. So then they're arguing, and, they go, you know what? This is dangerous for us to be driving the road. So why don't you just go ahead and stop in the middle of the road? And, the mom and dad are arguing, like, well, how long do you think it'll take a plow to get to us to be able to go forward? And as soon as they finish that, the plow comes and hits the car. And then we are introduced to the aunt Gemma, right?
Yep.
And she's working. She's in charge of the prototypes. And she is, essentially her boss or lead comes in, and they're working on. They're excited that they got this rubbery, creepy face mask for this prototype they're working on. It looks to be like a fully automaton android, right? That's going to be a girl, and they're showing all the stuff, and they're trying to do facial recognition, see how that goes. Boss comes in, I told you we need the new prototype because there's a ripoff coming out, and it's like $50 for this thing. Well, ours is a lot more money. We need this prototype ASAP. And then he has this creepy assistant that follows him everywhere. And and they're showing off the Megan. They call her Megan. She's the Model 3 generation android, so that's how we get Megan. And look what she can do, and things aren't acting properly because a guy forgot to install some inhibitor chip or something like that. Some chip. And so her head kind of catches on fire. And then she gets a phone call from, like the Oregon hospital to go up there. And that's when she finds out that her sister and her brother-in-law were killed. And then she's going to be the primary guardian of Katie. Right. So she, kind of talks to her, brings her home. Gets, to get a couple things from their house, and she gets brought to her house, which is a pretty nice looking house. As she starts to open the car door, there's a dog that comes through and starts barking and scares her. And she's talking to her neighbors like, I told you to keep your dog in your front lawn. Clearly a big size hole in the fence. And, talking about like, okay, well, fix the hole in the fence. Well, it's their front yard. The dog only had to go like 5 more feet to walk around the fence. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it wasn't like a...
It wasn't the backyard.
Yeah, it wasn't like a containing fence. It was just like a yard separating fence.
Right. It separated their driveways.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter if there's a hole in the fence or not. The dog can just get around it easily.
Right, because it's just not on the leash.
Right.
And then she's worried about spraying her chemicals. I don't know what chemical she was spraying, but she's like, don't get your chemicals on my driveway.
Yeah, who knows, dude?
Okay, it's a driveway. It wasn't killing plants. She wasn't, whatever. That was a weird plot point, which clearly just was to set something else up. So, she moves her in there. She gets into her workout room where she actually has a spare bed, and she's talking about like, you have a bedtime story. I always get rid of the story. She's like, oh, I don't have any kids' books. Let me pull up my phone. Oh, wait, I have to update the app. And I'm wondering what app she was using that she had to update. Like she just had a book app, maybe a Kindle app. I don't know.
Like Audible or something, probably.
Something like that. So then they kind of, wake up, they get breakfast, and their breakfast every morning seems to just be toast. Do you notice that too?
As you do, yeah.
Yeah, just toast. And she's like, I have to work on this prototype. Do you want to, do you have any toys? She asked if any toys. She realized that she has like a whole bunch of, collectibles that she had because her aunt's very seemingly smart and very big into robotics and stuff like that. She didn't have anything. She's like, hey, do you want my iPad? She's like, well, how much time do I have? She goes, what do you mean how much time do you have? How much screen time do I have? Oh, no, you can watch it for hours. I don't care. Right. So then they kind of just go kind of back and forth a little bit. And she's like, hey, hold on the fort. I need to work on this. My boss won't let me take any more time off. And she sees her aunt's workroom, essentially where she's working on code. And then she sees a big robot I don't remember the robot's name. Do you? Was it
Bruce?
Bruce is Bruce. Yeah, right. Yeah, Bruce. And they show her how it works, and they have like some pretty nifty gloves to power it on. And it's just like a robot that you control with your hand. So whatever you do with the gloves, it imitates stuff like that. So she teaches her how to use it. And you can tell that there's some good bonding then going on. Right. And then next day, social worker, I would say, or therapist come in.
Yeah.
Just to see how things are going. Probably both social worker and therapist.
Right. I was going to say she's probably like a grief therapist.
Yeah. And talk about, what do you guys want to, just interact. Good 30 and 40 minutes. Just show me how you guys interact. And like, okay, I'd feel on the spot too with my own kids, let alone someone else's kid, my niece. Because she's what, 10, 11?
9.
9? She's 9? Okay.
Yeah, so, well, later on in the movie when they do that interview with her, she says she's 9.
Okay. And the therapist goes, hey, why don't you play with one of these toys? Like, those aren't for playing. They take out a ball, and she's just trying to show her, what all the cool things it can do. It's not just a ball that you roll around back and forth. And she does get her input from her niece what she'd want in a, if I had a toy like this would be my forever toy. I wouldn't need any other toy, which gave her aunt just the flash of inspiration that she needs to finish Megan off. So they do a whole bunch of reworking in the Megan, and essentially introduce Katie to Megan. If you hold your hand here, she becomes paired with you. So, only you can, you become her primary person, and you can turn her off. This is how you turn her off. It has like the spot on the neck. You also tell her to turn it off, and then I become her secondary. And really just more interactions with this. And the reason why they're doing this interaction is to show her boss, this is the new project I want us to work on. Their boss is like, I don't understand anything about this, but we are going to, is this going to cost more or less than a Tesla to give to someone? And yeah, I'd say Katie gets a really strong attachment with her, that she starts coloring with her, painting with her, teaching her things. She's teaching her things, the whole kind of a montage of how to use a toilet and to wash your hands after going to the bathroom, and just teaching her all the stuff that, parents are supposed to be teaching their kids. And then they're playing. For some reason, Megan was inside. Katie was outside with a bow and arrow with the suction cup arrows, and she lost one. And she asks Megan, "Can you look for it?" She sees it, and it's through the hole in the fence. And Megan goes on, reach for it. The dog attacks her arm, and then Katie tries pulling off, and the dog bites her arm as well. And this whole altercation thing about a dog attacking. Well, she's on my side of the fence. She shouldn't be doing that. And threatening to put the gentleman starts threatening to put the dog down. But later that night, Megan goes out and imitates the dog's owner's voice and whistle, and kills the dog.
Poor Dewey.
Yeah. Yes. So then I think they're invited to a retreat. Well, do you remember what that was? Was that like a retreat for other kids that had these special issues as well?
No, yeah, it was because she was homeschooled before.
Right.
And so she was obviously not going to homeschool her because she had to work. So she was looking for a school that was not the typical public school. She was looking for an alternative school. And this alternative school was like, kids do, fun outside things instead of school type stuff.
Yeah, learning through experience versus in the book.
Right, yeah. It's kind of like an alternative school for gifted kids is what I got out of it.
Yeah. And we introduced to another mom whose son was a bully and who cusses at her and calls her by her first name. She just kind of waves it off. So clearly that kid's a problem. And he starts, they're pairing off for something. I don't remember what they're pairing off for, but nobody wanted
to search for chestnuts.
Yes, who likes roasted chestnuts? And all of them raise their hands.
I don't even know what it is.
No, I've never had one.
The only way I know they're a thing is because they're in Christmas songs. I've never seen one in real life.
Right. So she gets paired up with the bully, and the big thing is she didn't want to go in there because there's no toys allowed, so Megan go in there. But they had a giant toy table there, and Megan kind of is just watching everything, and the bully starts harassing Katie. Just I don't remember exactly what was said.
Well, apparently chestnuts are little spiky green balls. Yeah. So
he stabs her hand.
Yeah, she went to pick one up, and so he squeezed her hand so that it was got stabbed by the chestnuts or whatever. And and then he was just being a general jerk,
douchebag. Yeah,
but he was starting to get physical with her.
Right, and then Megan appears. Is this yours? He seems interested, and then he starts taking her. And then there's he's taking her running away from Katie, and then that's when Megan kind of wakes up and rips off his ear, and then kind of throws him down a hill until he gets hit by a car hard to the point of obviously death. Right. Yeah, that's definitely there. That's just kind of, I think it just kind of cuts to the next scene of them back at their house with her neighbor saying, "Have you seen my dog?"
Right. Poor Dewey.
Yeah. And no. So the neighbor was going all around the neighborhood, I'd say, looking for Dewey, calling him with a can of food, and stuff like that. And, she looked at the house before she left, and Megan was staring there. Then she looked back and she wasn't. And, the neighbor's just threatening, Gemma and Katie. And so eventually I think she was back at her own shed.
Yeah, it had to have been because the thing she was using to spray the chemicals was in it. So it had to
Which it seemed like she was really far away from her house.
Right. Well, yeah, she was on their side of the fence.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she was in the other backyard. So I don't, whatever. I don't know how that worked, but.
Right. And then essentially, Megan shows up and shoots her with a nail gun, which without precedent is not technically possible. You can't shoot a nail out of a nail gun like that. There's safety mechanisms in place.
Well, yeah, you can tape it down though.
Yeah.
I've been around jackasses that have taped it down so they can shoot it like an idiot.
And then she essentially sprays her with it looked like a pressure washer, but clearly had chemicals in there, and she was using plant chemicals in there. So she essentially burned her with chemicals on her face, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this generic chemicals. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
They were treating it like it was sulfuric acid, but even if it was sulfuric acid, it's being pushed through water in a pressure washer.
Right.
It's not going to be able to burn. It's not going to have enough time to settle and burn anything.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
Right. Like I said,
she was going to get murdered. They were just trying to show an interesting murder scene.
Yeah, this is PG-13 horror, so a lot of stuff is really shown off screen.
Right. Well, yeah, she pumps the acid, and they show it spraying on her face, and there's a little bit of smoke coming off, it must be burning it, and then they just cut to water flowing down the driveway.
Right. And then Gemma gets really concerned because there's cops again that show up, and she's not because she came there the first time about the dog attack, and the cops didn't do anything or couldn't do anything. And then oh, it's probably her again. And they show her being towed away in an ambulance with dead. And they realize, hey, there's a connection here, right? So that Gemma starts to get, wary of Megan and her actions to the point where I don't recall them saying that they had video camera for eyes. That they were recording stuff. But essentially she went, because she went to her laptop to look up the footage that was being captured by Megan.
Well, of course they'd have video camera eyes.
Yeah. And all the files are corrupted. They're supposed to be saved to the cloud, but they're all corrupted, so she couldn't find anything about that. So then she gets really concerned about Megan to the point where she kind of because she tried turning her off, but she wouldn't turn off. Until she had to, hey, look at this light. You see this light? And then she did the manual switch on her neck and then wrapped her in bubble wrap and packaging tape and brought her back to work saying, hey, there's something clearly wrong with her. We got to figure out what is going on. And even though that they're going to be a convention, they said 4 hours, or something like that to do it.
It's the big reveal. It's like the live stream reveal of this new toy.
That was the live stream reveal. Okay, so before that, then they had the investors there where they showed her niece connecting with her and making him cry because she talked about death and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, they're going to do a live stream of thing, but they couldn't leak this out. We find out that, which didn't go anywhere really, that her boss's her lead's assistant was taking files and sharing them out to his own private drive somewhere, and he was like, a mole.
And, right. Yeah. I thought that was going to go somewhere too, and it literally went nowhere.
Correct. It went nowhere. They go, okay, this is not enough. We have to stop her. She's becoming violent. We can't trust her. So yeah, I think Gemma takes Katie home, and then her coworkers who are helping her do all this stuff are trying to shut her down, and they can't.
Well, at first, because she takes over the phone, so she calls in. Gemma calls Tess, is her assistant. Well, not assistant, but her coworker's name. Yeah. And she calls her to say, like, hey, like, you need to shut down Megan. We need to shut down this live stream thing. Like, we need to figure out what's going on. Like, I need to get Katie away from this for now, but, we need to figure this out. But just whatever you do, just cancel the live stream. Yeah. And she's like, okay, yeah, no problem. And then that cuts to her, like, still working on Megan.
Right.
And then it shows that Megan had intercepted the call, pretended to be Tess's voice, and then talked to her. So, yeah, she never actually talked to Tess. So they're still going as if the live stream is going to happen.
Right.
And that's when they realize that they're looking through her code, they realize that, like, hey, look, this is all, like, bad. Like, bad things are happening. And then they look at and they see, like, in the log it pops up like she intercepted a call that was Tess's number.
Yes, that her learning is off the charts.
Right. And so, like, okay, like, this is bad, like, something needs to happen. And as they go to, like, click on, like, to do something, like, the power shuts down to the machine they're working on.
Yeah.
And that's when they figure out that, like, Megan is connected to their system and is actively trying to stop it. So he goes over and then unplugs her from the network or whatever. And then she essentially comes alive and attacks him.
Yeah. She's strangling one guy, hitting the other woman, but she's able to, get a hacksaw and hack the chain that was holding them there. So they still live, but then Megan's kind of loose in the building now. She kind of ran away. And Megan causes some sort of explosion in their lab.
Right.
And then she just walks by the alarm system and it goes green. So she has more, she is Ultron level network connectivity.
Right. Yeah, at least in this building's network. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, she sees, her Gemma's boss. What's his name?
I don't remember. Ben.
David.
David.
Yeah, and she just does a stupid TikTok dance, and then starts going after him. Takes off, which I'm surprised to still have the old school paper cutters.
Okay, for a moment. She pulled off a sword. That is not what paper cutters look like. It was literally like a paper cutter that had a sword attached to the end of it. Because when she pulled out it was a sword. That was not a paper cutter.
But it's supposed to be the old school paper cutter.
It was supposed to be, yeah. But because the blade in an old school paper cutter is just like a little like strip of blade along the bottom edge of a big plastic piece. And this was like literally a whole like bladed sword that was on the end of it. I mean, it looked cool, don't get me wrong, but that is not what a paper cutter looks like.
Right. And so she stabs David in the back. Like I said, we don't see. He's trying to get the elevator. And then his assistant's in the elevator. He's like, you're leaking stuff to outside the company, and stab. Okay. Sure. Yes, he was. Does that make him a bad?
I don't know. Again, I don't know why she would have any reason to kill the boss guy.
No.
Or his assistant. Like, there's no, like, I don't know why she would have any reason to do that.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, then she steals a car and drives a smart car, so she's able to control it without the key fob, right?
I guess. But I mean, at that point, if you're like super hacking a building, I'm sure you can hack a wireless signal to unlock the car.
Yes. So anyway, they go back. She gets back to the house, while she's telling Gemma, the aunt, that she's in charge. She's the parental control, that she needs to be out of the picture. Then Gemma tries to use the same trick to touch the button on her neck. Didn't work. Overpowers her. And then what? She's threatening to paralyze her.
Yeah, after they fight for a little while. Basically, saying she's going to stab a pen in her neck so that she's going to be fully paralyzed. And right. I think she suggested that she was going to have her bite off her own tongue.
Yeah.
So that she would have no way to communicate or anything, but that she would still technically be alive, so she would technically be the guardian, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
It was light logic there.
Yes, and then while it's happening, all of a sudden Bruce comes alive and starts.
Well, no, she says that there's another member of the family that we never told you about.
Yeah, and Bruce, yeah. And then she uses the boxing gloves or the Nintendo Power gloves for Bruce.
It's like robot jocks, man.
Yeah.
Or no, what was that movie? Real Steel. That was Real the one. Steel. That was the one where the people fought with the gloves, right? With the robots.
Yes. Yeah. With Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
No, Robot Jocks was the terrible movie in the 80s.
Yeah.
That I watched in the 80s.
So she essentially rips her in half. But that's not enough because her arms and heads are still active, and she tries to then kill Katie. They kind of knock off the face because they show with Bruce. I forgot to mention this. She's shown how they work, and she said, "Here's the eyes for the thing. Here's the brain. It's like the chip in the middle of the head." Right. So then they rip off her face, and then Katie stabs the brain essentially with the screwdriver.
Right.
Because she was taught that that's how Bruce is controlled. And essentially, police arrive outside because Tess and Cole, her coworkers, called and realized that's going on there. And then as they're leaving the house, her bootleg Alexa comes, essentially turns on, some smart hopes and then turns to watch them, alluding to that she Ultroned herself into a Stark Sentry.
Well, yeah, but not only that, but I mean, she was probably also left part of herself in that big building too, because she was obviously controlling it in some way. So,
absolutely. So, her AI has spread.
Well, that's the thing about an AI. Like, literally, it can back itself up anywhere. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's why Ultron is so dangerous, is because you can literally be anywhere.
I mean, that's why I had to use the Ultron just to help explain.
Well, yeah.
So that was So this is the first really close in hand of watching these things. That first movie that we're doing, live things to that we're seeing close to the day of release for getting us up on the pod as much as possible in timely fashion, but give people about a week to see it as well, so it's not too spoiler-y.
Well, I mean, we're being clear about what movies we're talking about. Yes. So if you haven't seen it yet, just don't listen to it until you watch the movie. It's simple.
Yeah. My first thought was, they did something similar like this, the new Child's Play, which I know you haven't seen, that we will be discussing. That idea is also in there, and it's different than the whole voodoo, Lakeshore Strangler type thing. No, but I had and it wasn't until the killing happened, the very few kills, that I remember this was a PG-13 horror movie. Because the story was great. It reminded me a lot like it could have been it was very Black Mirror-ish in the idea behind it, and the idea of AI and that friend in need, there's Furby from, I don't know how many years ago that was, 25. I don't know. I was too old for Furby, which means you were too old for Furby.
Correct. My siblings had Furbies
though. No, but I mean, I thought it was a pretty well written movie. I think it is better than I expected it to be. What about you?
No, that's very fair. Yeah, no, as I was watching, I expected it to be cheesy. I mean, I didn't expect a whole lot going into it, but yeah, no, it was better than I thought it would be. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things that I noticed that I thought were interesting. And one that I'll call out is that it's extremely rare for a female lead movie to not have any love interest at all. They almost always ham fist or shoehorn in, at least the guy that like wants to date them or something, right? Some kind of like, you have to show that, they want to date or something. They didn't do that at all. And I really appreciate that because you'd very rarely ever see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was great that she was dedicated and she didn't need a man. She was dedicated to her field that it just never came up.
Right. And that's the thing. It wasn't like, nobody made fun of her for it. I mean, I think there was only one like passing joke to like she had some Tinder notifications. That was it. That was the only thing that let you know that she wasn't just like, completely outside of that realm. But it's interesting. It's refreshing to watch just because it's so rare. I mean, they almost always hack in some kind of relationship, whether it's wanted or not. They almost always push something in there, and this movie didn't have that at all, and I appreciate it. That was cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So besides that, do you have any other highlights?
Highlights, I would say, whoever did the like actual like person movements for Megan, did a fantastic job. I mean, I know there was a lot of like camera tricks that they used to like, speed things up, slow things down, stuff like that. But I mean, still the movements that she was using were obviously a person's movements, and that the person like did a really, really good job of like being a robot. Like her movements were alien enough to where they looked off-putting, like they looked like they were obviously like robot movements. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about the face because I know that's like CGI and stuff, but I'm talking about her actual like body movements and stuff. And it was, again, it was just off-putting enough to put you at, you're just a little bit nervous, like a little bit like what's happening, Uncanny Valley kind of feeling. And it was.
Do you think that's one of the closest we got to Uncanny Valley in quite some time, other than like Ex Machina?
Probably, yeah, yeah, that's fair. But yeah, no, it was off-putting enough to be bothering. Yeah.
Yes. Very, 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 very much so.
But I got to say, whoever did that motion work was talented.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was, I think it was a young girl who did the body work and it just did like the CG over her face for everything else. But yeah, I mean, we come a long way from Small Wonder.
Right.
Which I almost called the title of this, Small Wonder. Just because of this movie. Definitely highlights, just the mythology of everything was really well thought out. And I think this is probably the first James Wan movie that we discussed. It's not the first Blumhouse, obviously, but I think James Wan is really good at fleshing out characters and be able to make this cohesive story. And this didn't really rely on jump scares. No. So, especially PG-13 horror movies, is because the violence is generally toned down a lot. They tend to use a lot of jump scares, and this didn't really have it. And didn't need it.
Yeah, I think the only one it really had was when the dog attacked.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning when the dog jumped at the window of the car, and then when Megan was trying to get that arrow. I think those are the only two that I can think of.
Right, but it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't rely on them,
right?
Which I liked because, like I said, a lot of PG-13 horror movies tend to do that,
right?
And realistically, a lot of James Wan stuff does too. He likes jump scares. He likes to have stuff just flash there too, but that wasn't needed for this,
right?
What about low points for you though?
Poor Dewey.
Yeah,
I felt bad for poor Dewey.
Well, I know, especially dog attacks is different for you. I'd have to say the low point is, why is his stupid doghouse in front of the house?
Well, yeah, again, I mean, again, like, yeah, you have dog problems and you have this, again, they're complaining about a hole in the fence, but like the fence isn't connected to the house.
Correct.
Like it's not even a containing fence. What are you worried about a hole in the fence for? Like build a fence. One of you, either one, build a fence and then you'll be fine.
Right. I mean, I don't know where in your area, like in my town, you can't have fence in front yards. Not allowed. The town north of me, you can. So a lot of people that come into they move to my town from the town next to me, they're like, oh, we're gonna build this fence to have this containing front yard, which is cool. I would love it, but I don't know, is there like California or Seattle versus Oregon? And it doesn't make any sense. Clearly, she has a shed in her backyard. The doghouse should be in the backyard, not in the front yard that's open, not leashed.
I mean, obviously, she needs to understand. Like, I mean, again, that's against the law just about everywhere.
Right.
To leave your dog unleashed sitting outside.
I don't blame the dog.
No.
In this case, it's the owner.
Well, and again, but technically, the dog only attacked when they came on his property.
Right.
Like,
and because
they attacked Megan when she came through the hole in the fence and only bit the kid after she stuck her arm into the fence on his side of the fence.
Correct. Because clearly the dog's out a lot and it's never attacked Gemma.
Right.
Like, it barks at her, but it doesn't do anything.
I'm saying, the dog should not be biting people at all, obviously. But I'm saying, like, they were on his side of the fence, knowing that the weird rivalry they have with the dog going on, they should have known better not to stick their hand in the fence.
Yeah,
but again, also everybody's an idiot involved here. I'm not saying that anyone's in the right or in the wrong. Everybody did the wrong thing.
Well, I'd also argue that with the quote chemicals that she's putting right next where the dog is, if it's that toxic to people, it could kill you. She shouldn't be spraying around her dog either. Let's face it.
Well, yeah.
But, I want to know what she was spraying on that side of the fence that she needed that powerful of chemicals.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I mean, what do you spraying chemicals with a power washer? I don't know what you could be doing, especially with a dog right there. Like, why? Yeah. What are you doing?
And that's clear where the dog was asleep too.
Yeah, again,
because he was out there in the middle of the night.
Yeah, again, she was not thinking things through.
She was a shitty dog owner.
Well, yes, that's true.
Let's be honest. But yes, this movie has to go into the list of does the dog die? Yes, unfortunately.
But to be fair, you don't see the dog dying.
Correct.
You just see the dog being pulled through the fence and a little like yelp, and that's it. You don't see like a bloody dog. So
right, and she asks about the dog. She's like, "Oh, he's 3 blocks over and 5 feet under."
Right. Yeah.
Which is 5 feet. Pretty impressive digging there.
Well, it's a robot.
Right. Any other low points for you?
I want to say Allison Williams' acting was a little wooden, I thought. Like when she was supposed to be like showing emotion, she just like, it really didn't come across like she was. And again, maybe that's her character. They kind of played the character as like a very logical kind of character. So maybe just that character didn't have a lot of emotional reactions to things. That's also possible. I'm just saying, like, I really felt like she kind of didn't put as much into it as she could have, maybe.
Holy crap. She was Rose in Get Out.
Yeah. She's also Brian Williams' daughter.
Yeah.
If you know Brian Williams, the journalist.
Anchor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say she was pretty emotionless in Get Out as well.
Well, yeah, but again, that was that she was supposed to be, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I've seen her in things where she does better, but this one I felt like she was wooden in it. And then again, but the character is a logical character, so I don't know if that was on purpose or not. So I
mean, we and I are pretty wooden. We are also in technology,
right?
Yeah. So AI win or AI fail? I would have to go AI win.
Well,
especially because we don't know what. I mean, it's been another spoiler. It's been greenlit for a sequel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the danger AI that we have that just with everything being smart homes, being able to hack into all that stuff and having that everything, the whole, Internet of Things, right? IoT. This is why you wouldn't want IoT to be in existence, because something like this that could get into your system like that.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, they already showed that she is in the main building, right? The main company skyscraper, whatever it is, and in her home. So, I mean, yeah, obviously these things are connected to the internet. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about AI is AI, like a true AI that exists in digital form, can literally back itself up anywhere. It's like almost impossible to completely eliminate because, they could be anywhere, that they have access to the world, and they're, they can, crack, codes and passwords and stuff in seconds. They could literally be anywhere.
Yeah. So you'd say AI win as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and we're getting to a number of reboots out of 10. I actually can't wait to watch this again. I can't wait for it to come out on demand or digital to watch this again, quite honestly. I think the wife is going to love it. I just really want to watch it again. So because of that, as of right now, I'm, other than, some minor quirks here and there for being a PG-13 movie, I'm probably going to a 9 on this. How about you?
Yeah, it's worth rewatching. I don't think it's that good. I'll go for 7.
So just as good as
out of 10.
Just as good as Chopping Mall.
Correct.
Okay. No, like I said, this week has been pretty good, I'd say, for good stuff.
Yeah, there's not any that hurt me to watch, so that's
correct.
A plus.
Well, yes. We try to leave as many hurting movies out as possible, but us next month is going to be a bit rough.
Yeah.
With what we have coming out, which I'll leave anyone who's listening. I do post out, stuff we will be reviewing onto our social media ahead of time too. So if you are listening to this and want to know what we're reviewing next, we also say it the week prior, but we are going, spoiler alerts ahead, and I will be posting what we'll be watching kind of a month ahead of the time as well. So if you want to watch and listen to it as well and see if you agree with us, fantastic. We'd like to hear from anyone on that too. Anything else you want to discuss with this week's episode?
No, just make more.
Yeah.
Please make more evil AI movies.
Exactly. Okay. Well, on that note, stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive into the trilogy Basket Case. So grab your basket and come join us. I'm excited. I don't know if you've ever seen these. All of them.
No, all of them definitely not. I've seen the first one, but I don't even know if I've seen the whole thing. I know what it's about. I know most of the scenes and everything, but I don't know if I've ever watched it all the way through. But I don't think I've ever seen 2 and 3. I'm almost positive I have not.
Yes, you're in for an interesting ride with this one. Let me just go with that. You may be hurting by the end of it.
I'm kind of betting on that.
All right. So in the meantime, this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.
All right.